Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 23rd of February, 2020. We are here to bring you this week's world news, round the world with Resistance Chicks. I have no idea. Usually I say we got a great show planned because I have an idea. I know that, unfortunately, the coronavirus has hit Italy.
Pretty hard, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's been deaths.
They're pretty scared about it.
And now what's this with they've got the carnival going on, and people are still trying to do it, but they're wearing their masks regardless. So yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. What else are we gonna give them today, Leah?
What else?
I don't know.
Why don't you start today with as people are coming in? Russia had its National Father's Day. It was kind of cool with fireworks and everything. I'm going to bring up that video.
Okay. Let me get to the right window there. Nope. There you are. This is for Father's Day?
Fatherland Day.
Oh, Fatherland Day. I was like, wow, that's a pretty big deal. Fireworks for Father's Day.
No, sorry.
Okay. They call Russia the fatherland? Is it a patriarchy thing? Okay.
Yeah, I guess it is.
This is an 11-minute long video. Where should I skip to? Patriot Gallery sent us this. Whoa, okay, here we go. Oh my gosh. They don't mess around. They don't shoot cannons off here. For Motherland Day. We don't really call it the Motherland Day.
We call it Independence Day. It's called the 4th of July.
But we don't set off cannons, do we? Like,
we're supposed to.
You're right, we're supposed to. Wow. So I'm guessing this is their equivalent of
Independence.
Not really Independence Day, but just
their
kind of celebrating your
holiday.
Country. Right.
Celebrating their Russians' Fatherland Day here. Everything Russia is not allowed to be.
See, St. Mark says Russia is also called Holy Mother Russia. So what do they have? Like a dual gender, whatever you want to call it?
Sunday, February 23rd. Defender of the Father Day in Russia. It is a day for the general population. Schools and most businesses are closed.
I'm gonna skip ahead. This is like a really long.
Well, you can
show.
play it while I read about it. Many Russians observe February 23rd as Men's Day because military service is obligatory for men in Russia.
Okay.
Women also give presents and postcards to their male relatives, including those who never served in the military.
It's just a Men's Day. Like, we just celebrate men.
On a work day before or after the holiday, many women also congratulate their male colleagues, and schoolboys may receive small presents from their female classmates.
Do they have a Women's Day?
Russian authorities may organize local parades to honor the military and veterans on this day. The reason behind celebrating the Defender of the Fatherland Day on February 23rd are unclear. What?
I get it. The men have defended Russia.
Yeah.
In the
Russia
military,
first celebrated
right?
this day in 1922 is the 4th anniversary of the Red Army. Yay for them.
Oh boy.
However, Russian leader Vladimir Lenin signed a decree for the creation of the Bolshevik army on a different date. In 1938, Soviet history books started claiming that the Red Army won an important victory over the German invaders on February 23rd, 1918, but no independent sources. So it's just basically, people who serve in the military, and it kind of turned into a
celebrating all men.
It is Men's Day. Yeah, it is
hilarious to me.
Men's Day.
Men's Day. Men get a whole day. I still want to know if the women get a day.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm not trying to be feminist
There
here.
is International Women's Day on March 8th.
Hot dog. Okay, then it's good.
So it is the Russian equivalent of other Western countries on Father's Day.
So it is Father's Day,
which has not been traditionally celebrated in Russia, but it's a little bit different because fathers, we're not celebrating.
It seems like a different, an amalgamation of Father's Day and Independence Day and what was the last one I was going to say? Oh, just celebrating like our military in general.
Exactly. And then there are private ceremonies. Women give the most important men in their lives presents, showing appreciation. This is it's kind of interesting because, like, on Women's Day, you celebrate all women, so
right.
All right. Okay, you can stop it.
I'm sharing on Facebook because we're still unable to go live there. Oh, wait, let me actually stop the video. Boom! It's the cannons are still going, man. Wow, that's actually really fun.
Yeah. Okay, so coronavirus update. We'll start with that first before we jump into all the rest of the world news. The usual migrant stabbings, rape gangings, Swedish population being overthrown. This just everyday average stuff. So, first of all, I don't know if you guys heard this of people in America, but Michelle was concerned, so I want to let her know what happened behind this. The Diamond Princess was horribly managed by the Japanese cruise ship, where like a third or fourth of the people got the virus who, if they had actually disembarked and spread out, they wouldn't have probably gotten it. It was a really horrible, like, if you're on there, you're like, I'm going to get it.
Stop it.
But I know it's a kind of American news, but it's kind of worldwide. President Trump was livid after 14 Diamond Princess passengers infected with the coronavirus were flown back to the United States without notifying him and against his wishes. Trump and his coronavirus task force were told last Saturday that Americans quarantined for weeks aboard the luxury cruise ship would be brought home on 2 chartered planes, but that infected patients or those with symptoms would remain in Japan. That decision was overruled without Trump's knowledge. Okay, Michelle was wondering what happened, what went down here. So Trump was briefed on the decision and agreed that healthy passengers should not be on the plane with sick ones. 3 senior administration officials said, but the State Department and a top U.S. health official ultimately decided to bring back the 14 Americans who tested positive for the virus on the plane.
We're just not going to tell the president.
And place them in isolation without telling the president.
And without telling the other passengers on the plane. Now, granted, explain to them what you said to me about the plane and the...
Well, there were other people, like, there was an old grandma, and should you just kick her off in the middle of the rain? I don't know exactly how it went down, but it was just a sheet of plastic between them both.
Trump, but you said that these people were already coming from that area, and there was only one flight.
I didn't know this. I didn't know there were... Trump said there was going to be 2, so this is new information.
So, all right, so Lee's giving you the right one. She gave me the wrong one. Hey,
that's what they told me.
There's no fault.
There's no wrong. It is information at that time. Right. Trump learned of the decision after the fact and was reportedly angry that he wasn't consulted first, as the decision could damage his administration's handling of the response. Some members of the task force were not told in advance, and I honestly think they brought him back on purpose now just to sabotage Trump's administration.
I know!
It's so crazy the way this is going down, guys. Mm-hmm. Not told in advance, and the infected people will be placed on the plane and learned only after. It's important to remember this was an emerging and unusual circumstance. We had 328 people on buses. They planned to execute, and we received lab results on people who were otherwise asymptomatic, unill people on a bus on the way to the airport. The people on the ground did exactly the right thing in bringing them home, except we've known for more than a week that coronavirus tests aren't sufficiently reliable, often showing false negatives, while so-called asymptomatic super spreaders are walking around infecting people. These people don't have any symptoms. Let's just bring them back.
Oh my gosh.
11 of the evacuated Diamond Princess passengers deemed high risk have been confirmed to have the coronavirus. They, along with a 12th passenger, are being held at the National Quarantine Center in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay, so they come here, they're being immediately quarantined. So in that respect, I guess it's not a huge deal. I'm more upset about the 11 passengers.
But here's the thing.
That had to be on that
You're
flight with
transferred with these people.
Yeah.
Everyone else is let go. Or
I'm sure they're under that self-imposed quarantine thing.
Yeah, but you don't know if they've got it because they were with these guys.
And that's the thing. From my understanding, and you take this with a grain of salt, but I've been doing a lot of research on this. My understanding is that they really do think it just travels in the air. Like, it just is in the air. So, you've got the passengers on the plane, right? There's only, that air cycles, Okay? So even if they have the sheet of plastic protecting the droplets, that's what I'm saying. It all comes down to these droplets and whether the virus can be transmitted and actually just go through the air without the droplet, my droplet landing on you and then you ingesting that.
Right.
So we know that is a case. But they are, I think it's almost confirmed that it does just travel through the air. I'm not 100% on that. But if it does, and even if they don't know one way or the other whether it does, you've got these people on this plane. It's traveling through the cycled air system. I mean, what do they have a fancy plane that blocks off air from one side of the plane to the next? No. I'm guarantee you the whole ventilation system
All right,
is the
so let's
same.
go to Italy. Lockdowns have failed to stop the surge in the coronavirus cases in Rome, Italy. Italy's number of cases of a new coronavirus leapt upwards with dozens of new confirmed cases reported in Lombardy, the northern region, which includes the country's financial capital, Milan. A total number of confirmed of COVID-19 cases in Italy have reached 115 on Sunday. State TV said following an announcement by Lombardy Governor Attilo Fontana that there were 89 cases in his region. Most of those cases have popped up in small towns in the countryside. How in the stinking world
are they getting to small towns in the countryside?
I am not understanding this.
Here I am out there making my vino in my vineyard, and then all of a sudden I get the coronavirus. How does this happen? I was not in contact with anybody. I just was pruning my own vines.
Almost all of Italy's cases are clustered in the north, with roughly a dozen towns on lockdown, meaning that people are not allowed to enter or leave the town's boundaries. After Lombardy, the next hardest hit region is Veneto in the northeast, with at least 17 cases. Italians cherish Sunday routines, from soccer to church going, were being touched by the spread of the contagion. Almost entirely based in the north, sports events in the affected northern regions, including local kids sports teams practices in top Major League Soccer matches were canceled. Bishops in several dioceses in northern Italy issued directives that holy water founts be kept empty, that communion wafers be placed in the hands of the faithful and not directly into their mouths by priests celebrating Mass, and the congregants refrain from shaking hands or exchanging kisses during the sign of the peace ritual.
It's not enough.
In a coincidence, the Vatican official in charge of the office dealing with propagating the faith halls from one of the hardest hit towns, the Codogno, oh jeez. Archbishop Rino Fiscella, whose siblings live in the town, declined to dramatize the measures. It's obvious that we need to use all necessary prudence. Italy's first case is that of a married Chinese couple who were on vacation in Rome early February. To date, 2 deaths of elderly persons in the north have been reported. Of those hospitalized in Italy, at least 18 people were in intensive care on Sunday. So that is the latest there in Italy. Now, North Korea is being hit, we know. So I'm going to bring you some updates here. Italy confirms 3rd death. That's just brand new. 4 more cases confirmed in the UK. 200 Israelis quarantined. Japan confirms more cases. Japanese emperor and expresses hope for Tokyo Games. We're going to have the Summer Games.
No.
2020. This happening. No. Italy cancels last 2 days of the carnival in Venice as cases soar above 100.
Wow.
The South Korea total cases above 600. That's huge. That's a jump from when we did our show on Friday, like 200.
Oh my gosh.
Rivals the Diamond Princess for being the biggest outbreak outside of China. Trump says the U.S. has everything under control as he asks Congress for more money.
He has everything under control. Well, then why did these people fly on that plane and nobody told you? I hope you went and fired a bunch of people.
The EU's Gentiloni says he has full confidence in Italian health officials. I will tell you one article I read that 64% of the people who have the severe pneumonia will die. That's what they're saying. Global Times says virus may not have originated at Wuhan seafood market.
Well, duh. Yeah.
The Chinese are saying that. Axios reports shortages of 150 essential drugs likely. Did you know in the 1980s, all of I'm talking about Americans, antibiotics were made right here in the United States.
Isn't that something?
Now it's between 80 and 90% of our antibiotics were made in China.
Problem. That's a problem. So
outsourcing things like antibiotics to another country,
Because then all of a sudden they
Trump,
can just...
So this tightrope that Trump has been walking with China, they shut it down. Everyone in the United States dies.
Yeah.
If they're like, we have everything. We have all of the antibiotics. We have all of your medical equipment. We've
got your gloves. We've got your face masks.
You may grow food, but we make the equipment that you use to process it and harvest it.
Right.
It's insane. Here's
the deal. Okay, so while we say all of this, calm down. We are all gonna be fine. Okay. We're all fine here. We don't want any fear mongering going on with this. And that's just a personal standpoint. That's not an agenda we're trying to push. We just don't want everybody to be walking around in fear because that's not what our channel is about.
All right. So the number of new coronavirus cases in Japan has risen to 135. 57 new Diamond Princess cases have been confirmed days after hundreds were released from a 2-week quarantine. Bye-bye. As we mentioned earlier, a third passenger has also died. One of the cases, according to the Japan Times, is a woman who was reportedly let off the cruise ship as the quarantine ended. Of course, she was let off the cruise ship and then she died. Of course, every expert in the world, including the CDC, warned Japan that this would happen. Since health officials didn't seem to have much of an aftercare plan, alas, here we are.
Oh, dear.
3 boys have been confirmed to be infected with the virus, are now Japan's youngest cases. They include preschooler and 2 brothers in an elementary school. It's the first time people under the age of 10 have caught the virus in Japan, while the younger boy had recently traveled to Wuhan with his father. Dude, I'm telling you something. The numbers in Wuhan are extraordinarily high because everybody's like, oh, I went to Wuhan, I got it. I went to Wuhan, I got it. I went to Wuhan, I got it. Like, everybody's got it in Wuhan. I didn't tell you that.
Hang on, let me read some of these comments because people have a lot to say about this. Vaughn says, rumor is the scientist that was working on the virus was funded by Epstein. Epstein was funded by people. So maybe they might have been funded by the same person, but I don't think it was funded by Epstein himself. He didn't seem to have that kind of global takeover monster type deal. He just had a monster type deal going on. Let's see. Wicked Psych says, if people who recover from it are susceptible to reinfection, they will be walking around in public weeks before showing symptoms. How are they monitoring that? They're not. Jay Dillon says, more than 100 wild animals dropped dead near coronavirus epicenter in China after workers sprayed too much disinfectant. That's terrifying.
Guys, I'm going to tell you something right now. If the world is saying, like I hope it is, there will be no Tokyo Summer Olympics. It should be canceled right now. Just let all the athletes know we're not going to have it right now.
We're going to do a nice odd 2021. You know, that never happens, but you can just postpone it a year.
It's not going to be in Asia.
And it's going to be somewhere where there's not a big outbreak.
Here's the thing. I'm not exactly sure where we go from here, to be honest. Right?
No more Olympics.
When you're going to literally have people from almost every single country in the entire world at one place, and they're going to come to a region that has this deadly outbreak.
No, they won't do it.
And then they're going to go all the way back home and go to every country in the entire world.
I don't think they'll do it.
You have 2 options, okay? You have to not... But see, and then, 2021, 2022, you do the Summer Olympics until you get this
How about Asia just doesn't get to host the Olympics anymore?
Or come.
Oh.
Here's the thing,
I think when you have a worldwide outbreak like this, you're right. You have to shut it down until you can get a handle on it. Because, I'm thinking of ideas. I'm thinking, okay, so you'd have to be quarantined somewhere, weeks in advance and test negative for it, and then you could come. But we don't have solid testing for it yet. So they're going to have to wait for these advancements to come forward. Where you're watching my hair bounce.
Yeah, it's cute. You got little highlights.
You got highlights. I was...
No.
I
can't. It's too much in the way.
Okay. I am the producer and director of this show. All you do is the stories.
All right, so they're still looking forward to the Summer Games. This new coronavirus is a concern. I would like to send my sympathies to those who are infected. At the same time, my thoughts are with the efforts of those who are treating them and working hard. Tokyo will host the Summer Olympics from July 24th.
No, they won't.
For the second time.
It can't happen. It cannot happen. What day does it start?
July 24th.
Oh my gosh, no. And I think that they're cramming for a test. They keep thinking, no, We got time.
So you have 200 Israelis who are under quarantine after 9 Korean tourists tested positive for the virus following a return trip from Israel.
Wow.
Yesterday, Tel Aviv issued travel warnings for South Korea and Japan. They've also barred foreigners who have recently been to either country from entering Israel. Those under quarantine include people who came in contact with the Koreans. So, Italian authorities have confirmed a third coronavirus-linked death in northern Italy. Officials confirmed 50,000 remain under lockdown across 12 villages in the north. I'm trying to remember last time anything worldwide has happened like this with, like, you know, people, just all these little
You mean
breakdowns.
not even in your lifetime, like, you know, going through history
No, in my
your
lifetime.
Rolodex.
No, I know they didn't really do quarantines. That's how, like, the Spanish flu.
Exactly.
You know, it's kind of like, I
Right.
don't remember this, you
Right.
know? So this is just all new. It's all new to me to figure this out.
So Christina Wheeler on YouTube says there's a face mask that prevents the Karachi virus from entering the body. The Israeli company Argamon Technologies has made a cotton mask infused with copper. The mask can be washed up to 100 times.
Wow, that's a crazy. And you know, that was interesting. Infused with copper. So this goes back to Patriot Gallery. You ready for this? So when we have gold and silver, silver is an antimicrobial.
Yes, it is.
So when you're exchanging money with silver,
right.
The viruses and things can't live on silver.
I think about it all the time when we have these paper dollars. It's like a tissue.
It's so gross.
Ugh.
And then copper, the copper pennies. So what we need to do is now everybody's rich if you have copper pennies, because that's the only way we can exchange. We're giving a monetary value to pennies.
But copper has its own, like, so we put it in our water tanks for
Yeah.
the animals.
Exactly.
To stop the growth of algae.
Yeah.
I just watched a video the other day. This guy, he wasn't really convinced about it, but he threaded, because there was a theory that if you thread a copper wire through your tomato plant and wrap it around, that as it takes up moisture, it'll help stop fungus from growing in the plant.
Cool.
So
I wonder if we should put a penny with all of our plants.
Yes, you could. He didn't really notice too much of a difference.
Oh.
But that was when it went through the actual plant. I think if you were to put copper in the
water
that you, like, watered it with, it might be
Put
helpful.
a penny in the water.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I'm going to try that.
But the plant did okay either way.
Right. Okay. So there's a buying panic happening in Milan, in Italy, right now, with this total. You know, the Italians are definitely freaked out.
JoJo says wrong. Quarantine was 40 days in past history. When ships returned to port, they remained on board to make sure no illnesses. Look it up.
Well, what I'm saying is, you're saying in general to make sure no illnesses, right? I'm saying in my generation, have we seen these random? Okay, your village is on lockdown.
Yeah.
Millions of people are on lockdown.
Right.
They can't, like, I have videos that I've seen of people on, like, I don't know, 4 stories up, lowering their dog out the window on the most giant rope you've ever seen so it can pee, and then pulling it back up. Like, I don't recall this. Like,
No.
I know of Ebola,
Right.
right? And SARS was small and isolated, but, like, this is kind of taking, and I don't want to scare people, and I'm just saying this is unprecedented. It's unprecedented.
Okay, so you bring up copper sulfate. I'm not talking about getting crazy here. We're talking about, like, a penny. Like, copper sulfate can be used. I mean, it's dangerous. We're not talking.
It's not dangerous, but
Okay.
copper sulfite is used for a fungicide. We use it on our plants all the time.
You can use it to clear drains. Like, it'll eat up, like, roots
it
and
is.
stuff,
Don't get in your
okay?
fingers.
Like,
Don't touch it.
Yeah, that's
Use
not what we're
gloves.
talking about. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to suck on pennies. So much so, here's a little brief. In the history life of Michelle Svensson. When I was a kid, I sucked on a penny. And I used to suck on them all the time, which is nasty. It's gross to think about.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. I was a child. And it got stuck to the roof of my mouth. And we had to go to the emergency room. It's one of the big stories that happened in my life. I think it was probably like
A bead
3.
in her ear.
I got a bead stuck in my ear. We had to go to the emergency room for that. I cracked my head open, had to go to the emergency. We never had to go to the emergency room for you. I busted open my knee, had to go to the emergency room for that. Then I broke my ankle, had to go to the emergency room for that.
You're an expensive child.
Thanks. But they always gave me, like, a popsicle or a sucker or a piece of candy.
I never got one.
And you never got one.
Okay, now that the coronavirus pandemic has started to spread across the globe at an alarming speed and is accelerating every day, with infected clusters emerging in South Korea, Japan, Italy, and Iran, and with more people dying from COVID-19 outside of China, questions are, and that's the key here, people are dying outside of Wuhan. You know, Questions are again swirling what the real source of the pandemic was, and this time, with countless lives at stake, China will no longer be able to give a vague, undefined response like, oh, someone ate a bat at a primitive food market in Wuhan.
Yeah, no way.
Especially if Beijing has decided that it will soon need a scapegoat to distract the increasingly furious population from its own disastrous handling of and ongoing lies about this viral pandemic. In that vein, we found it fascinating that none other than China's nationalist propaganda mouthpiece, the Global Times, published a report overnight which dramatically changes the narrative. Namely, that a new Chinese study indicates novel coronavirus did not originate at Wuhan seafood market, which is incredibly, they knew they had to because patient number 1 never went near it.
Right.
So they have to,
I shouldn't laugh because it's terrible, but somebody had said in the chat, this is really serious, and forgive me for not seeing who it was, I just read it, and I can't confirm this, but if this is true, this is terrible, that your body, they're finding that people's bodies aren't really building up antibodies to it because of how easily you can get reinfected. And so we take comfort when these plagues spread throughout history.
I got the flu once, I'm not going to get reinfected or something.
Right, and we build up these antibodies, we pass those on to the next generation.
Or maybe they just weren't healed.
Maybe they weren't healed all the way.
Yeah.
There's so much that is unknown.
Right, so they're saying, published the 21st February, the novel new coronavirus may have begun human-to-human transmission in late November from a place other than the Wuhan seafood market. The Wuhan seafood market in Wuhan.
It's Wuhan. Wait. That's why you keep... Hunan.
The Hunan seafood market in Wuhan.
In Wuhan.
Of course, we already knew that, but what is critical is that until now, Beijing was adamant in sticking to the official narrative that it was the Hunan seafood market in Wuhan where the disease emerged, despite not providing any information on what animal was the vector or who was patient 0.
It wasn't an animal.
However, now that the narrative has been officially questioned and challenged in a media outlet of the Communist Party, it is safe to say that the theory of the Hunan food market being the source of the pandemic. The study published the Chinese Open Repository of Scientific Research reveals the new coronavirus was introduced to the seafood market from another location and then spread rapidly from market to market. I got an article from a friend that said they were known to sell from the level 4 biolab the animals that they practiced on, and people would eat them afterwards. Monkeys and things.
That's gross.
Right? And so they're known. This is communism. They sell things under the table, right?
We're going to figure out how we say this word.
Hunanan.
What? Let me try a different one.
Hunanan.
Hunanun.
Huanan.
Huanan. Huanan.
Huanan?
Huanan.
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 All right. So the study believes that patient 0, which has not been yet identified, and whose identity holds the key to unraveling the mystery of the coronavirus source, transmitted the virus to workers or sellers at the Huanan.
So wait a minute.
Seafood
you said
market.
They need to be identified. Somebody has to know who it is in order to know that they didn't have
Patient
contact.
0.
Somebody
Patient
has
1 was nowhere near it. They knew who that was, but they don't know who patient 0 was who gave it to patient 1. Okay. The crowded market facilitated the further transmission of the virus to buyers, which caused a wider spread in early December.
Mm-hmm.
So, an earlier expansion occurred on December 8th, implying human-to-human transmission may have started in early December or late November, and then accelerated when it reached the Hunan seafood market. Patients from Australia, France, Japan, and the U.S., countries with wider samples, have had at least 2 sources of infection, and the U.S. in particular has reported 5 sources. However, based upon limited samples in other countries, the source of most infections is deemed to be the same. In addition to their contact history with Wuhan, some may have been infected in South China's Guangdong province and Singapore, according to the report. January 6th, the National Center of Disease Control Prevention issued a second-level emergency response, which the researchers said served as a warning against mass public activity and travel. And in a surprising rebuke of Beijing's handling of the epidemic, one which was implicitly endorsed by the Global Times, the researchers write that if the warnings had received wider public attention, the number of cases spreading nationally and globally in mid to late January would have been lower.
Like when Dr. Li Wen-chen
said
he was giving out these massive warnings,
right?
And then and they silenced him. You're stop, and then he ended up dying. Now, either, in my opinion, when it comes to, we don't talk about him very much anymore because he's already since passed. He was a Christian, by the way. I think he was a martyr. There's three possibilities here. Either the death rates for people that are infected, the percentage is just so high and they're not telling anybody. And that's why he died, because he was young. He was like 34 years old. Okay. Or they killed him. Okay. That's a possibility. Or there's a third possibility here. Being exposed to it constantly has a more negative effect because he was around all of these patients. Right? But there's no reason for him to have died other than those three.
The head of one of the hospitals there is dead.
Yeah, exactly. Let me get you some comments here on Periscope. Sun Devil, I would love to talk about 5G all day long. It's scary. It freaks me out. We will eventually be talking about it because they're rolling it out and it's bad. It's bad, mamma jamma. Ian says, is it time for a cashless society? Guzman says, because the virus was man-made. He says population control. So, yeah, and then Sun Devil just wants to talk about 5G. I don't blame you. It's scary. It's bad. But God's going to have to turn that one around. But, yeah, this whole coronavirus thing.
The New York Post, which is not, obviously, any sort of fake news site, said, don't buy China's story. The coronavirus may have leaked from a lab. Like, seriously.
Right.
Everybody's tiptoeing around this because it's China. But, like, guys.
No. Robert Goddard said that he has a penny story. He swallowed one. It got stuck in his throat. Luckily, there was a next door neighbor there, and he grabbed me and held me upside down and slapped me on the back until it popped out. Okay. Praise God.
Yeah.
That's really good. Hang on, there was one more I wanted to read. Vaughn says it's scary to think how one country could destroy another with a virus and never set foot on enemy ground. It's definitely being worked on. Okay,
so Xi didn't actually admit from the New York Post that the coronavirus now devastating large swaths of China had escaped from one of the country's bio-research labs, but the very next day, evidence emerged suggesting that this is exactly what happened as the Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology released a new directive entitled Instructions on Strengthening Biosecurity Management in Microbiology Labs that Handle Advanced Viruses like the novel coronavirus.
I was hoping you were going to talk about that.
Read
because
that
it's like,
again. It sure sounds like China has a problem keeping dangerous pathogens in test tubes where they belong, doesn't it? And just how many microbiology labs are there in China that handle advanced viruses like the novel coronavirus? So why are you issuing these directives if there's only this one lab?
Right. Josh, our Young Living guy, had asked me in an email what I thought, and I had sent that exact same line back to him. I said, listen, they have tightened their protocols. They're like, wait a minute, we need to make sure that all of our, they only really have the one bioweapons lab, which is right there in Wuhan. They're tightening the protocols to make sure that these leaks and things can't get out. Why would they be doing that if they didn't think that it had escaped?
What's more, the People's Liberation Army's top expert in biological warfare, Major General Chen Wei, was dispatched to Wuhan at the end of January to help with the effort to contain the outbreak. According to the PLA Daily, General Chen has been researching coronaviruses since the SARS outbreak in 2003, as well as Ebola and anthrax. This would not be her first trip to the Wuhan Institute of Virology either, since it is one of the only two bioweapons research labs in all of China. Does that
one of two? What's the other one? Nobody's ever talking about that. They always said that the Wuhan
level
one was
4.
the only...
Wuhan's level 4,
okay.
Right? Does that suggest to you that the novel coronavirus known as SARS-CoV-2,
COVID-2.
Now known as SARS-CoV-2, may have escaped from that very lab, and General Chen's job is to try to push the genie back into the bottle. So, all right.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, so in Italy, we have all these cases. We've got cases in South Korea. We've got cases in Iran.
South Korea has 123 new cases. I think they're up at 500 or 600. South Korea is 556.
I'm guessing you're not going to get a single number from North Korea, which if the virus spreads to North Korea, you know there's no stopping anything because they don't let anything in or out.
Yeah, so 4 deaths in North Korea and then in Italy. So, all right. So we are, and then just worldwide here, Samsung shutters smartphone factory in South Korea after the virus outbreak. So late on Friday, South Korea reported 142 new confirmed cases. That was a mind-boggling 70% jump in one day. The virus is expected to lead to similar economic disruptions, and this is what we cover. This is what we're talking about.
This is what we covered when it first came out at the end of
January.
January.
Say to you, make sure that you have a water source. Make sure you have a way to have clean water. Make sure that you have food stocked up. And you're like, well, what could happen? Well, coronavirus could happen. And I didn't have a way to tell you that, but I had a way to tell you to be ready for something like this.
Right.
Lynette Zen calls them black swans, and I have goosebumps all over me. So what
Black
should
swan
you
events.
do? What do you do right now that's not crazy, is not going to blow your bank, but might just help you in the future? I want you to go to the store. I want you to buy 5 gallons of bleach at least. What are you going to do with that? 1 tablespoon of bleach will purify a gallon of water. At least.
And if you have a problem with that, you just need to understand that your city water has a whole boatload of bleach in it.
Okay? You can clean a lot of water with bleach. Okay? So, I want you to get bleach. I want you to go to the store, go to Sam's, and I want you to buy, and I want you to have at least 10 to 20 bags
Of beans. Dried beans.
Dried beans. Hopefully you eat them. Learn how to cook them. What we do is we go through them. Okay? When I go to Sam's, I buy a couple bags. I keep them in a stack. Then I use them. We have black bean soup. We have all kinds of stuff. All right? I want you to have
rice.
Get some bags of rice. Exactly.
These are things that are fillers, they're nutritious, and they are dry goods, and they store well.
We lived a good winter on beans. There's a tons of nutrients in beans. You can live on them. These are little simple things. Food and water.
Vinegar.
If you can get some vinegar for cleaning. Stock up on some laundry soap. Okay? Just cheap laundry soap. Make sure you have 2 or 3 or 4.
So when I say the vinegar, white vinegar is an excellent cleaning product. Apple cider vinegar, especially Broggs that has the mother in it, can be used for just about anything. Things. For health purposes. I'm starting to use it as a facial toner. I just started today. It really helps. I mean, these are basic things that will help you get through in the event of.
So these are the first 2 things that anybody can do right now today. Get yourself some bleach and get yourself some beans. Okay? Now, when we talk about these things, you can use those. They're not going to sit on your shelf forever. I want you to buy things that you're going to end up using eventually. Okay? Yeah. So eventually, if you're doing a lot of laundry, you're going to be going through bleach. You're going to be going through beans. So it's not something that you're just like. There are a few things that I stock up. Now these are the extra things. Okay? Splints. Tons of Band-Aids, bandages. One thing.
A suture kit.
What I get burn gel patches. These are little things. These are extra things, okay? Then you have stuff like in the middle that's nice to have. I want you, if it's nice to have jars, canning jars and canning lids. Okay?
And to already be knowing how to use them.
If for some reason the electricity goes out or whatever, you can take your meat from your freezer and you can can it up pretty quickly.
Isopropyl alcohol, Wicked Psych says. You would need a pressure canner for that, by the way.
Yeah, you need a pressure can.
To can meat.
That's the middle of the road things.
Baking soda.
Baking soda. Great things. You can get a giant big bag from Sam's of baking soda. Just have it on hand. Okay? These are little things. Now, what the extra preppers, for extra prepping, if you would like to have bread during this time, I know y'all are going to come stomping on my door, and that's okay. God will protect us. We also have other things that I don't really go into detail about to protect our stuff and our stash. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. So you might not want to come knocking on our door. But I have a stack of bags of 25-pound bags a week. Now, where can you go those? Where can you get those?
The Mormons.
Go to the Mormons. They already do this. The Mormons religiously, according to their religion, if you know a Mormon, you can go to their house. They have to keep a year's worth of food stocked up.
No, it's not just like going to the Mormons. They actually have pantries, canneries. where you can go and
Look
the
it up.
public
Yes,
can
they're
go and
called
purchase
canneries.
these things.
You used to be able to buy the stuff and then can it up there, but then the government got in the way of
Iodine.
that. Okay. Yeah, iodine. Great. You want to have that?
We
on
get
there.
ours from InfoWars.
Well, I think they're talking about big things
Oh,
of
okay.
iodine
Yeah.
for cleansing and things
Okay.
like that. So those are some of the things that you can do. Then you can have and you can and you can be maybe
Just
a
think
generator.
common sense wise.
We have one. It's very kind of just a Harbor Freight solar charger. And you can just put it out, and you can charge one thing at a time.
Yeah,
like a phone, like if you need to, or
well, it's not just a solar charger. Okay. I thought you were talking about mats. Yeah, it's a plug. Like you could run something for a minute on it. Yeah, like you could plug something into it.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of which, do you realize that your car is a little mini generator, right?
Yeah.
So again, with the charging thing, we have in our it could be used for any one of our cars, but we used it for vacation. It plugs into the cigarette lighter, and it turns DC power into AC power, so that you can plug something in. So let's say we're not going to go into the zombie apocalypse, right? But let's just say you don't have electricity for whatever reason. Then you can drive your car around and plug in something that needs to be charged, like a drill or a drill battery or something like that. So
right. Okay. So anyways, you're seeing Samsung right now saying that the manufacturing facility would be shut down through the weekend as emergency disinfecting operations are underway. The area where the employee worked will be shut through next Tuesday, the company said, adding that all employees who came into contact with the infected person are now placed on self-quarantine. So we'll see, and that's just one. We'll see where this goes. But that's just one thing. So we're talking about supply chains being disrupted here.
And I'm kind of glad about this because I feel like we live in a day and age where you get a new cell phone every year. We do not, but other people do. You buy the latest laptop, you buy the latest TV, you buy the latest car, and we may be turning into Cuba, where you will see all of these cars from the 1950s that are maintained because they stopped getting imports in. What if we stopped getting imports and we just started maintaining the stuff that we already have? Yeah. What if people have a car and they decide, you know what, I'm going to keep this car. I'm going to maintain this car. I'm not going to buy a new car. We will be saving money. We will be saving the planet. So all of these AOC greenie people ought to be like, you know what, this could be the cutoff point that we have been needing to what is it when somebody comes off
detox?
Well, yeah, that or whatever. Yes, from these things that we shouldn't be addicted to.
Right. All right. One more thing on coronavirus, and then we're going to move to the rest of the news. Coronavirus riots. Residents hurl stones at police. Buses carrying quarantined Ukrainians. Protesters opposed to evacuees returning to the Ukraine from coronavirus hit China clashed with police Thursday night, leaving Ukraine's prime minister warning that further unrest may follow. Locals in Novi Sanzhary, Ukraine, built barricades and burnt tires after they discovered a local army hospital had been selected by the government to host 70 Ukrainian nationals and foreigners flown back from China over a 2-week quarantine. As the coach loads of evacuees approached the area after dark on Thursday night, counter-protesters hurled rocks at the vehicles and clashed with riot police who had been deployed to the town. Over 10 police officers were injured in these riots. It took several hours for the coaches to move through the disturbance. By the end, 24 protesters were detained by police over the violence. By Friday morning, hundreds of soldiers had been deployed to the area to keep the peace. Ukrainian Prime Minister Han Kurak condemned the violence in parliament and blamed misinformation, leading locals to feel threatened by the presence of evacuees. Even if you were threatened, even if you were threatened by and they have a reason to feel a little afraid, but you can't. There's nothing you can do. Like, you can't go and I think that with the world, I wanted to show you this. This is kind of how people are feeling. It's wrong. You should not go and obviously attack people, even if you are upset or you are scared. Yeah. It's, you know, it's the Prime Minister says we can't allow putting the health and life of local residents at risk and demand that top officials take urgent moves to prevent people from China from being put here. Somebody says a statement. Coronavirus has grabbed the headline. So, wow. I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of where the rest of the world was at over this.
So on Periscope, Guzman says, Wuhan woman with no symptoms infects 5 relatives with coronavirus. Yes. He also says baking soda. We talked about that. Peanut butter. Stock up on peanut butter. It's full of protein. You can live on peanut butter for a long time. Peroxide. Power inverter.
Yeah, you guys are on. I know that a lot of you are here and you already do a lot of great prepping. So keep putting those ideas.
Have an herbalist make you thieves oil, or you can just get it online. You can look up the recipe and get your own oils and put it together. Yeah, the thieves oil is really, really
okay. Yeah, they
amazing.
found that the thieves oil, which you can get not just from Young Living. What are the 4 in there?
Clove, cinnamon. I want to say lemon.
And
there's one more.
I don't know if it's eucalyptus or something. You can look it up. But
it has to be a specific recipe. You can just Google it, thieves oil recipe, and it'll tell you how many drops of each.
But they Young Living did Lysol and bleach, and I can't remember what the third one was. And what they did was they wiped the bottom of your shoe. Put it in a petri dish.
All right. Clove, lemon, cinnamon, eucalyptus, and rosemary.
So I knew I just was missing rosemary.
5 ingredients.
So anyways, they put bleach on the petri dish of the wiping at the bottom of the shoe. And Lysol. I wanted to say something else. I can't remember what the third one was. The Clorox wipe or something. I'm not sure. And then they did this thieves oil. And actually, mold grew in every single one of them, but the ones with thieves oil.
Oh, I know. They did, what was it, tea tree oil? Or, no, it was oregano oil. And the oregano oil
did better than
the other ones. The oregano oil was just right on par with the thieves.
Exactly.
But we don't use oregano oil for that.
Cleaning.
For that purpose. We do use it. You can use it for an antibiotic on the bottom of your feet. You can take it internally. But you have to be careful. It's what's called a hot oil. So if you're taking it internally, you have to know what you're doing. So don't just say, "Oh, Michelle said take oregano oil." It's not like taking oregano, the spice.
If you're gonna do oil, you have to put it in
or herb, I should say. So here's this recipe I put up. If you want to take a screenshot of this or Google it yourself. 40 drops of clove, 35 of lemon, 20 drops of cinnamon bark, 15 drops of eucalyptus, and 10 drops of rosemary.
Okay, so Salvini has slammed the leftist government's handling of coronavirus as 14 new cases were confirmed in Lombardy and 2 more in Veneto. Salvini made his statements on Friday, slamming the leftist Italian coalition after the first case of the coronavirus was revealed in Codogno, Lombardy. I think of the controls on who enters and leaves Italy. Obviously, something is not working. The Lega leader went to add that it is essential that from today, if they haven't already done it yesterday, anyone who's entered Italy, if by any means of transport, from the raft to the aeroplane, and if it comes from some areas, it will be isolated for 15 days, as other countries do. Salvini added that he will be returning to Milan, stating that he found the situation worrying. Wow. A total of 14 cases were confirmed in Lombardy, and some 30,000 people placed in isolation in various villages. All right, so there is that. Now, I want to go over here to this Canadian thing going on, this pipeline.
Going to Canada.
Yeah, I could, let me see here, I want to do this. You can, hopefully they're not, you can bring this up. Now, there's a pipeline, and you've got some Antifa and some AOC types in Canada who have been derailing these trains. I played this one and this one. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Which one do you want me to play first?
Canada rail blockades. Let's see if we get.
In a sign of just how tense and complex the issue is, including among Indigenous leaders, the Grand Chief of Quebec's Ganasatake First Nation today did a U-turn. He's retracted his plea to the demonstrators to end the blockades as a show of good faith. Here's a bit of what Grand Chief Serge Otsi-Simon said yesterday.
Bringing down the blockades doesn't mean that you surrender. Like I said a while ago, it doesn't mean we're going to just lay down and let them kick us around. No. But it would show compassion along with the strength.
That did not sit well with some Ganasatake Mohawks. They padlocked the doors of the Chief's Band Council office and called on him to resign. Today, he retracted his comments, saying it's not his place to make such judgments.
I've had concerns about the potential consequences of such actions, but sometimes a leader, you have to know, as a leader, you have to know when to lead and when to follow. I am now deciding to follow the people. I apologize for any harm or confusion.
Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stephenson joins me now. Mercedes, there's a real difference of views across the board on what should happen next. Some hereditary Wet'suwet'en chiefs are heading east from northern BC. Are they intending to meet with the Prime Minister, or do we know the purpose?
Okay, pause it real quick. I'm gonna resume this. I want to give you guys a little background here. So, Canadian minister confirms far-left extremists are sabotaging the railway's safety equipment. So, Canadian Transport Minister Marc Granoux, a member of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Liberal government, has admitted far-left protesters aligned with a counter-pipeline group have been actively sabotaging railway infrastructure. People are dead. Okay? Minister Granoux appeared on public broadcaster CBC on Monday to discuss the ongoing crisis which has crippled the Canadian rail system in large parts of the country and confirmed that aspects of the rail system are being tampered with. There have also been instances of tampering on the railways. One that concerns me is disabling the signals that occurs at a road crossing. We accept peaceful protests and demonstrations in this country that are peaceful and lawful, but it is concerning if people aren't respecting the fact that they injure themselves and other people. That's like too Canadian. You guys are hurting people, and the Canadians it's concerning if people are being injured. Granoux also put out a press release warning those who would look to sabotage the rail line, saying, "Finally, I also want to remind Canadians that tampering with rail lines, rail cars, or signaling systems is illegal and extremely dangerous. In addition to putting yourself at risk, you are endangering railway workers and train passengers, as well as the communities around them." Two statements largely confirm blog posts made by the Antifa far-left extremists on the blog North Shore Counter Info, which have both called for and taken credit for several instances of railway sabotage in recent weeks, claiming to be in solidarity with the First Nation. The anti-pipeline blockades, which are said to be in support of hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en, while the elected council support the pipeline, have crippled Canada's rail network. The CN Rail canceling all trains in the east of the country last week. Via Rail, which canceled nearly all passenger trains last week, said on Tuesday that they would resume select trains from Ottawa to Quebec City on February 20th. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, meanwhile, is under pressure to end the blockades, but told the Canadian House of Commons that the solution will not be simple. Trudeau also organized a meeting with opposition party leaders to discuss the crisis on Tuesday, but declined to invite Conservative Party leader Andrew Scheer, who had previously laid the blame for the crisis on far-left activists. Scheer reacted to Trudeau's statement on the crisis, saying the Prime Minister's statement was a complete abdication of responsibility and leadership. The Prime Minister has emboldened and encouraged this kind of behavior, he added. The far-left climate activist protesters also saw a new ally emerge on Tuesday when Climate Kid Greta Thunberg tweeted out her support for the protest, saying, "Support the Wet'suwet'en Nation and the pipeline protests happening now in Canada."
Wow. Jay Dillon says it's illegal. It's called murder, actually. I mean, yeah, totally. Okay, you can kind of, yeah, go ahead.
Chiefs who are all opposed to the Coastal GasLink pipeline are flying east not to meet with the Prime Minister or the government in Ottawa, but to thank the Mohawk who have erected rail barricades in their support. The goal behind the trip is to strengthen the alliance between First Nations, and that will begin as early as tomorrow, when the hereditary chiefs will meet with the Mohawk of Tyranny in Ontario. And then on Saturday, they head to Quebec to sit down with the Mohawk First Nation of Ganawage. It's all a show of unity and expression of solidarity as they ignore Ottawa's offer to meet with Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Carolyn Bennett. The chiefs say that they won't talk to Ottawa until the RCMP get off their land. But that could be difficult. An Indigenous lawyer who we spoke to says that the provincial and federal governments cannot order the police to do anything when it comes to operations, no matter which side of the debate, whether that's clearing protesters or whether that's ceasing to enforce the injunction in BC. But Sarah Mainville believes there may be a creative solution if everyone comes to the table.
The CN has sort of allowed operational police decisions to decide when and where that injunction was enforced. If Coastal GasLink was of the same mindset, we might actually get a stand down by the RCMP.
And Donna, of course, we bring you the latest on how those meetings go.
All right, Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa, thanks.
Okay, now you can play the
so much of what we consume and what companies.
Next one there, that one, tensions runs high. There we go.
It's not muted.
Your violence is not welcome here. Your violence is not welcome here.
What violence?
Your violence is not welcome here.
I'm removing some litter.
Your violence is not welcome
I'm
here.
removing some
Your
litter.
violence is not
Look
welcome
at all the litter. This is bad.
You're a
It's bad
superstar
for
now.
Canada.
You're a huge superstar. Look at you. You're a
I'm
media
not trying. I
superstar.
don't care about that. I care about work.
Then
I
go
care
to
about
work.
success
Go
for
to
the
work.
country.
Go to work.
I'm trying to. You guys are in my way.
This is your work.
You think so? Do you think my job does wrong in this railroad?
Oh, indirectly.
You're nuts.
Indirectly. Your violence isn't welcome
Excuse me.
here.
I'm just trying to remove
Your
some litter.
violence is not welcome
Can you
here.
do me a favor and help me remove some litter?
Your violence is not
Help
welcome
me
here.
remove some
Your
litter.
violence is not
Help me clean up.
welcome here.
Help me clean it up, bud.
Your violence is not welcome.
I'm not being violent.
You are. You're confronting
No,
peaceful
no.
protesters.
No.
That's violent.
You're a bunch of litter bugs. This looks like litter.
Okay, then go to
Garbage.
town.
Look at the landmass.
Oh my God. Indigenous people and elders to do this.
What's this going to lead to?
You guys are representing 5 out of 13
Absolutely
Indigenous
violent.
elders. 8 out of 13
You're
are
gonna
in
go through
support of
elderly
what we're doing.
people.
I'm just here to clean up some garbage, man. It would be really nice if you would help.
You're a clown. You're honestly a clown.
Listen to you, just like to know the words to push my buttons, eh? Trying to get a reaction. It's not going to work today, bud. Tell you what, you want to call me names, you come on over to my house, you call me some names, we'll get rid of the media crew, and we'll see how that ends up for you.
As soon as you can give us a viable option for an alternative to oil and gas that puts out the same gigajoule output as oil and gas, then we will listen to what you have to say.
Okay.
Right? Then we can have discourse.
Thank you.
Because you don't have anything viable at
I'll
this
call
moment.
then, let's clean up some litter here.
This is awful.
Maker, would you like to join us in the line?
Okay, are we watching?
Okay, you're done. You're done.
All right, no, I have a couple of thoughts on this. Okay, so here's the deal.
I wanted to actually, we didn't cover this, but there was a fiery freight derailment on the 6th of February. And that I didn't get to
I think
show
we
you.
briefly covered it, but yeah.
Because they were carrying oil. And yeah, so
It's not there. There's no right here
yeah, I think that's
on either side.
It's easy to come in and say right and wrong, isn't it?
It's all wrong, okay? So you've got the far left activists. They're wrong. You've got these oil mongers. You've got a society that plows right through, doesn't care. Listen, we have to have our iPhones. We have to have our automobiles. We have to have our industries. We have to have Ford's assembly line. Like, we have to have all that stuff. And we don't care what it does to the environment, what it does to, the indigenous people's lands. We don't care at all. It doesn't matter to us. Like, this kid was like, show us a viable option and then, we'll talk. Well, you could say that to, like, as on the case for abortion, you could say, well, show us a viable option. No, it just has to stop today. Or slavery. Show us a viable option. No, it just has to end today. And so what the indigenous people are doing there, my sympathies are with them. The people that are addicted to oil, my sympathies are with them. Neither of these people ended up in the situations that they are in because they chose it.
And that's what our show is about, because trying to untwist the problems that we see today by going back to how it started. So when you look at the first oil barons, when you look at the Rockefellers, when you look at the Carnegies, when you look at the Fords, when you look at men who were so greedy that they, Rockefeller said, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers.
Right.
Ford created an assembly line and people praise him, but the essence of the human being, no man should have to just put a tire on a car every day. Like, that's not what God's created you to do. You're created to live free on a farm, but the answer is to this is not violence. The answer is not to go and because you're not going to fix it. So what's the answer? So we have answers here. It's the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So we take the big things that are so horrible and awful that are happening, and
hard.
we're not afraid to look at them, and we're not afraid to take them head on. Start homeschooling. If we, the more we pull the cogs out, okay, get the information out. That's what Patriot Gallery does all the time, and people think that she hammers the gold and silver too much. But, you know, when we're talking about all this technology, you know, Michelle and I, we're looking at grounding mats because you get these positive ions which aren't good in your body, and you need to release them, which is called, you know, grounding to get they're bombarding us with the skies, chemtrails. How do you protect yourself? Well, guess what, guys? There's a scripture in the Bible, and it says, when you are part of this new Jerusalem, God himself is a wall around you,
of
protecting you. And if you have a colic on your life, the Bible says, even if you eat any deadly thing, it will not harm you. But we come and we bring you the harms of the GMOs and the harms of the chemicals so that you recognize who is doing it and why they're doing it, why Satan is doing it.
And why it's important to stop it.
If you eat those things as a Christian, God can protect you. If you are using these things as a Christian, if God's called you to go into this world as if you were called to go into a military battle. I can't go to battle. I could get shot. I could get wounded. I could get hurt. No. Some people bring a battle to you. They stole our minds. They put us in public school systems. They started to brainwash us. The battle was already at our feet. Right. How do we get out? Through the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I'm telling you, I look at the end of the tunnel and I see freedom for every man, woman, and child who chooses it. Okay? You have to choose it. You have to go to God through Jesus Christ, and you enter into a new city. Jesus says, you are now Christians. You are strangers and foreigners to this land. You're part of a heavenly land. So why do we pray? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come in heaven, where people are safe and healed and protected and justice is done. Your will be done on earth as it's done in heaven. Your kingdom come, your will be done. So I want you to start praying that. But if you don't know his will, how can you pray it? So when we come and we show you and we say, what these oil barons are doing, raping the soil, that's bad. So you have two choices. You shut your you have three. You shut your eyes to it, knowing it's wrong, and you just try to forget about it. Number two, you join with them. You say, this is good stuff. I like it. Or the third option, which is the best option, is to say, God, you say to the storm and to the systems, peace be still. It's the same thing, and I bring it down to the Chinese Communist Party. They are abusing people. They are raping people. They are putting this, in the Xinjiang province, Muslims in concentration camps. It's not because they're Muslim, guys. It's because they're having a lot of kids. It's because of their ethnicity, not because of their religion. And that's different. I just want to just put that out there. They are putting Christians in prison. They have control of everybody's mind. But can they come down? Absolutely. And how does a communist regime come down? By faith. Okay? By faith. And I have been saying to the Communist Party, peace be still, that storm. The toxins and the power. Jesus said, or there's a prophecy that says, when Jesus comes, the building up of his kingdom will not end. Your job and my job
is to keep building the kingdom.
Advance the kingdom of God. Now, what does that mean? The Catholics thought they had to do that by the sword. And that's why it doesn't. Right. That doesn't work. Okay, advancing the kingdom of God is that you spread the gospel to people's minds so that they come to know Jesus and they're set free from the power that sin has on their lives. And then the flip side is that God begins to give justice to them, to you, to me. If you were abused, the public school that came against me, they're going to be under judgment of God. The Federal Reserve System. You have to, but you have to believe it. This is by faith, and that's the trick of it. So we're on a journey together. We're on a journey. America's on a journey. The world is under another great awakening, the third great awakening. It is with the knowledge of the gospel of Jesus Christ. When you recognize that you have had these weapons in your hands the entire time, but you have to see them with the eyes of faith.
Yeah.
It's not you want to fight the Huawei and the 5G with your hands, but you can't. But you need to tell people how bad it is so you can fight them in the spirit realm and say, be gone in the name of Jesus. I curse you in the name of Jesus. Just like my mom would go back and forth on a small scale from a palm reader's thing. She would say, I curse you in the name of Jesus, and it stopped. There was a Hooters in town. That thing burned down, was never built again. We would curse you in the name of Jesus. It came. I was like, man,
every time we passed these places,
nobody was hurt.
We would say, I curse you in the name of Jesus. My mom started that when we were kids.
Right. So you have power. You have power. And so when I say that this oil and the fact that we're stuck on it is not good, that means that God has something gooder. It's better for you.
And the beauty is that when we join together, that's what I love about the Resistance Chicks family. If you guys can start praying and we're praying and we start praying the same exact things, there is power in that unity. So I want you guys to be excited when we talk about these things that are happening. Know that as Christians, we have been given so much more power than what we're actually operating in.
Exactly. So I would love to join. I want to join with the environmentalists and say, you're right. When you look at the oil spills, when you look at what plastic does, and that's why I'm trying to bring it down.
How bad it is for humans.
I just want to bring it down to just picture when we show you the oceans of plastic and the rivers of plastic. You have to know that that's bad. Yeah. Okay? So
even if you don't believe in global warming, which we don't either, all of these things are bad for living organisms on the planet.
Exactly. And I've got an article up that
including
the
us.
German government is giving the okay for Elon Musk to deforest a huge swath of trees to build a giant manufacturing facility for his electric cars to save the environment. Okay?
How about just leave the trees alone?
This is, and Elizabeth Warren, she shills for these new people who want new businesses. She said, hey, in the debates, there's $1 trillion industry and jobs that have yet to be created. We can have $1 trillion. So a real environmentalist is going to be what Thomas Massey said when we were in that room. Local farmers doing things on their farm. If something has to be manufactured, like some penicillin or and something for your animals or something, things should be done on a way smaller scale.
All of these anti-capitalists still have the same big giant agendas. They just want it. They're communists. They just want it to be owned by the government,
and they want to live. See that, and that's where we see the same problems, but two very different solutions. I want the individual. They want the corporate. Right. They want the society. They want the
workers. They want the Ford, Carnegie, and Rockefeller workers assembly line. We want people to be on their farms doing their own thing, providing for themselves. But what happens when you have that, and this is why they aren't for it, is you create independent thinkers. That feeling of independence that you get when you have a homestead, when you do something yourself, when you don't hire out.
That's amazing.
Right?
It's amazing.
It affects your mind. So it changes your character, and then you can't be their slave.
Exactly.
And that's why they don't want independent people. They don't want homesteads. They don't want small farmers. They don't want small business owners.
If there's going to be manufacturing, let it be a small manufacturer that creates something that helps you not need something else. So like my grain mill.
Oh yeah.
Let it be somebody making the grain mill so I don't have to go and buy my flour from the big grain mill.
Yeah.
You can have your individual this or your individual that, right? But I just wanted to, on the train derailment, this was the foul play is being considered following the third train derailment in Canada this month after left-wing extremists called on supporters to sabotage the country's rail system. The incident occurred in Saint-Marie-Salmon in Canada's French-speaking province of Quebec earlier this week and saw 2 train cars derailed, and that was one of the 3 train derailments that have taken place in February across Canada, starting with the derailment of 32 cars in Saskatchewan on February 6th, and a fire engulfed 19 of the cars, and 1.2 million liters of crude oil was spilled as a result. Here's the thing. If you're trying to save the environment and you spill 1.2 million liters of crude oil, you're the bad guy.
You are the bad guy.
Okay.
You should be arrested.
Yeah.
I think Dale Jones said that in the chat.
Locomotive event recorder download determined that the train was handled in accordance with regulatory and company requirements. So the third derailment in February took place in the province of Ontario, near the northwestern town of Emo, and saw 30 rail cars, some leaking crude oil, derailed. So
these people, they can't. What happens is,
you feel
when you're raised in that daycare mindset where kids start biting because they don't have any other recourse because there's no one there to protect them, then you resort to the violence.
It's wrong to be in the daycare.
And that's the thing here on Resistance Chicks that I hope that you guys see us consistently bring. It doesn't matter. When you look at something, you always want to be able to say, that side is right, that side is wrong. That's our brains are wired to that. We want to be able to, okay, who's wrong here?
I know.
Well, but when you're not given all of the choices as to who is wrong,
you'll
end up choosing the wrong person.
Yes. You got to give the right choices to who's wrong.
So who's wrong in the daycare situation where the kid bites the other kid? It's not the kid biting the kid, even though that act is wrong. Who put the kid in the daycare? Who is watching the child in the daycare? You can go even farther than that. Why is it that these people have to put their kids in daycare? Because almost every mom, if you ever talk to them, say, I want to be able to stay home and raise my kid, but I can't afford it.
Right.
So why is society there? It just goes up and up and up. And then bottom line is it's the devil. But we can hone in on who is wrong if we widen our parameters.
Okay, so I'm going to go and we're going to do some stories about Islamic terrorism. But first, I want to give you kind of a good story. Okay. Just so that we're not, stuck in Islam bad.
I believe does anybody know what Trump has to say about the coronavirus? Trump hasn't really come out to say much other than he's trying to protect our country.
And he's trying to keep the balance because he knows that 80 to 90% of our antibiotics are made in China.
Exactly.
All right, but here's some good news.
Okay.
Egypt's once reviled street dogs get a chance at a better life. Karam Hagazi spends his day at a Cairo clinic taking care of animals long considered a menace in Egypt. Remember, in Islam, dogs are haram.
Yeah.
Stray dogs roam in almost every Cairo neighborhood, lurking in construction sites, scavenging through trash, and howling nightly atop parked cars. The government says there's about 15 million of them.
No.
They bite some 200,000 people a year, according to the World Health Organization, and spread rabies, one of the world's most lethal diseases, which is why you should just okay, dog population, only pets, everybody else, if you're a pet, you're going to give them a rabies shot. And that is honestly... if there's one vaccine, you should give to your dogs and any animals or any person. The one vaccine I get behind in the whole world is a rabies shot for your dog.
Yeah, but you said to people.
No, as far as vaccines, I don't think people need vaccines.
Right.
But I do believe that a vaccine for rabies for dogs. I do believe in that.
Right, but you were talking about giving rabies shots to people.
No, I'm saying as far as any vaccine across the board.
Right.
The one vaccine I am behind 100%.
So are you coming out as some sort of monster here saying we should kill all of these dogs that aren't pets?
If they have rabies, obviously a dog has to be put down.
If they've bitten
dogs
somebody,
and here in America, if you see a stray dog, they're caught.
They're rare.
They're tested.
Most places in America, because when we were in Montana, at Glacier,
in the Native American on the plant, I've never seen anything like that. Just wandering dogs
roaming around.
It was actually kind of cool because I'm guessing that those are they're probably fixed and they're probably, or maybe they're not. Probably not. Never mind. Anyways, so they spread rabies, one of the world's most lethal diseases. And if that wasn't reason enough to feel revulsion towards dogs, a famous Islamic saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad warns that angels won't enter your home if there's a dog inside. Lies. I got 4 of them right now. Angels with me, baby. You missing out. Some of the cutest patooties right here. Oh, my word. Just so cute. They're all sleeping. They are all sleeping. Literally have 4 beautifully sleeping dogs right now. They're just literally just all of them sleeping. Here. That is so cute. We have 4 little dog beds, and they all picked a dog bed. Oh, my word. So cute. All right. So, After centuries of stigma of the street dogs of Egypt are finding popular acceptance and along with it, surging grassroots support. That includes adoption and medical care, as well as spaying and neutering to keep them from producing more puppies in the streets. Volunteers armed with giant fishing nets and tranquilizer darts.
Oh, wait, you're talking. I just took a video. I didn't realize I needed to mute it. Those are our 4 dogs we have there.
Aww.
Okay, go ahead.
Tranquilizer darts embark on regular missions to catch, vaccinate, and sterilize dogs before letting them loose. The efforts are making inroads against the prevailing government policy of extermination by poison. They're catching the dogs
behind you.
That's a good. Oh, jeez, I don't know. What is that? What's happening? Is it? I've been.
Go to extend for a minute.
I have no idea what's happening right now.
Well, let's unplug it and plug it back in. Leah's screens to stop projecting. It must be the television or something.
Did somebody hit the television button?
I don't know. Yeah, go to... And why would that be on our television, though? That's creeping me out. All right, did you plug it back in?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Well, there would not be any reason for that to be like an advertisement. No, stop. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is getting on my nerves.
Wow, we're live.
Hi, guys.
Did I hit a button? There we are. No, we're not.
That's so weird.
Wait. I don't understand. Wait, is the duplicate thing not working? You said extend.
Well, yeah, but it shouldn't matter.
Ah!
I got an idea. Let me turn the TV off. We're going to turn it back on.
Well, let me just tell you the story where we do this.
Okay.
So these efforts are making inroads against the prevailing government policy. I'm like, what's... There's a dog being caught.
No, we know we're still on. Yes, no, that's not the issue. Leah's laptop is supposed to be projecting behind us, but instead it's projecting the home screen behind, and I was doing something else as well. I think the only answer would be to just leave the resistance chicks back there and hopefully it doesn't change to something else.
I've seen a major shift. People are seeing a value in strays from his veterinary hospital in the upscale suburb of Maia. He said he's no longer treating just foreign pooches, but also a growing number of adopted Baldi dogs, the once reviled Egyptian street breeds. Even pious Muslim clients are taking in street dogs. Hagazi says that they often reconcile their religious beliefs and love of dogs by keeping them in grassy yards or on rooftops. Egypt's upper and middle classes have increasingly adopted Western-inspired idea of dog ownership. Pet hotels, cafes, and grooming emporiums are sprouting up in major Egyptian cities, fueled by the rise of social media. Enthusiasm for Cairo's dogs is moving beyond snob culture. A Facebook forum for vet recommendations exploded into a community of 13,000 pet lovers trading strayed rescue stories. Dozens of new shelters coordinate adoptions online, flooding Instagram feeds with images of abandoned puppies.
Oh my gosh.
What has surfaced online is spilling into the streets. Some of Cairo's more well-to-do districts are mobilizing spay and neuter teams to counter what advocates describe as gruesome government methods to control the dog population. The General Organization for Veterinary Services, an arm of the Agriculture Ministry, routinely sends authorities to kill strays by scattering poison in the streets overnight. That's horrible. That's a horrible way to die. After the French invaded Egypt in 1797, Napoleon Bonaparte's troops spent 2 nights shooting all of Cairo's street dogs because of their raucous noise. That's so sad. Major dog eradication campaigns in Egypt stemmed from the city's explosive growth in the early 1800s when dogs became scavengers. So I'm just excited about these. It's so wonderful to see something good happening, and I do want to... I just want to highlight that.
There's the doggies.
There's the dogs. There's the dogs. All right. So how do I go to my next articles?
Well, you'll just go to them. They just won't see them.
Aww.
I have no idea what's going on, and it's going to take me a minute to figure it out. I wish I could. Sorry.
Okay. So what you can do is go here and you can probably search and eventually bring up the articles.
You know, the Breitbart search wasn't working for me. Like, there's no search here on Breitbart. Oh, okay.
You'll eventually find them here. You go. It's the easiest part is to go here in these pictures. Okay, in the UK, convicted acid killer launches jihadist terror attack on prison staff. A man convicted of killing a grieving mother, there you go, with industrial strength acid has launched a terror attack on prison staff after becoming radicalized behind bars. He, also known, General Webster, is said to have feigned a suicide attempt in order to lure guards into his cell in HMP Winchester. When they approached his seemingly lifeless body, he leapt to his feet and launched what the Times describes as a copycat jihadist attack with an improvised blade, although fortunately they were able to restrain him without injury. It is the second known attack of this sort in a British prison in 2020, with terrorist Imar Brustholm Zamani and another prisoner having stabbed and slashed a number of prison staff with makeshift weapons while wearing fake bomb belts and screaming Allahu Akbar.
Oh my gosh.
Unlike Imuru, Zamani was already a hardened jihadist when he went to prison for a plot to behead a British soldier in emulation of the radical Islamic terrorist who assassinated Lee Rigby in the street. According to fellow inmates, the so-called Emir once tried to organize a coup against the prison system and would hold Sharia courts in his prison cell. Zamani's prison, which was exposed as a hotbed of Muslim gangs and forced conversions in 2011, was also home to Usman Khan, another already convicted terrorist who went on to commit a terrorist attack, although Khan killed members of the public after being released on license early rather than attacking prison staff.
Oh my gosh.
It's not clear what the motive is, but the features of this attack is what ought to be the most, what should be the most secure environment in any prison, suggest audacity and careful premeditation at the least. The attack could well have been inspired by recent violent extremism inside and outside the prison walls. It's extremely important that the police investigate and is speedy and transparent of what is the motive there of his terrorism. Pretty crazy there. Islamic State supporting woman admits to St. Paul's Cathedral bomb plot in London. A British woman who supported the Islamic State group pleaded guilty Friday to plotting to bomb St. Paul's Cathedral in London. Safiya Amir Shaika, 36, from Middlesex in southeast England, admitted to the preparation of terrorist acts and dissemination of terrorist publications. She spoke at a hearing at Central London Criminal Court. Prosecutors said Shakia made contact with someone who could prepare explosives and went on a reconnaissance trip to scope out the historic site. She also shared terrorist documents through groups using Telegram messaging app. Between August 2019 and October 2019, she will be sentenced May 12th.
I never could find that one.
Okay.
Sorry.
French authorities are concerned over upcoming release of 148 jihadis. This went well for the UK recently. You could probably go to the date or whatever for February 20th. French law enforcement officials and intelligence agencies have expressed concern over the expected release of at least 140 radical Islamic extremists by the end of 2022. I never search and never find it when I search, but you can try. The jihadis were described as very dangerous individuals by National Anti-Terrorism Intelligence Agency. Has also expressed similar fears, calling the release of the terror convicts a major concern. Officials added that the release of the jihadists has become an even bigger concern for them than returning Islamic State fighters. Wow. Both law enforcement and intelligence agencies say that the level of radicalization among those set to be released has not yet been sufficiently measured. Some inmates, such as Bilal Taghi, who was sentenced to 28 years for attempting to murder 2 prison supervisors in 2016, is said to have claimed he has given up on radical Islamist ideas. And authorities believe to be alive. Republican member of the Parliament Eric Chiatti has tabled legislation that is to be debated in May in order to combat the issue of security with jihadists set for release by granting powers to the government to keep them in prison if they are deemed to be a serious security threat. There's really, honestly, there's not much you can do. Remember, Sudish Aman, 20, who wounded 2 people in Streatham, London, was released from prison after serving just 3.5-year sentence. So while we did cover the influx of Africans, they're coming for a different reason than the migrants, and so it's literally 2 separate issues, and you're being hit in Europe from 2 sides, and one y'all created, not you, but the EU created in devastating these African, and it's the same kind of thing here in America, where our government devastated corn. And so we have a bunch of really decent people trying to come up to make a living.
Right.
At the same time, we've got drugs being run. We've got MS-13 gangs being run. And the cartels are actually being a part of this migrant. So, again, with the whose fault is it? Okay? So it's easy. I love open and shut cases. That's the easiest. That's the best. When it's not open and shut, that's what we're here for, to research and find out who's doing what, where, when, why, and how. These people, the Muslim extremists, the Islamic extremists, are there in Europe, and they are being radicalized because there are people with an agenda to kill and maim and to hurt. So, you know, I want to. I think I have this video here. We didn't free Britain. No. Actually, I will read this, but then bring up the video. He's going to talk about. No, bring up the video first. Let Maia Faraj talk about the immigration system here.
Nigel, my favorite Brit.
Good evening, Nigel.
So, is she delivering on the promises made by the government and what people voted for?
I don't think so. I personally think it's a disaster. I don't support this direction of travel at all.
But the country did.
No, they didn't actually.
Really?
Because the way we left was never defined in the vote, and so it included many scenarios that were available. This is just one of them.
Do you not recognise that immigration was the single most important factor in the Brexit vote?
I think you made it a very important factor. I don't think that it was the factor that I think you exploited people's concerns of people coming here to scrounge, if you like, the people who didn't contribute and took out.
And then Boris Johnson. And then Boris Johnson. Hang on.
Of the 3 million people who were coming into the country as migrant workers, 2.94 million were working and 60,000 weren't. So I think there's a very legitimate concern over people who don't put in and pull out. But there were EU rules in place for those people to be removed from the country.
Phil, don't make me laugh. The idea that Phil, don't make me laugh. Please, honestly, let's grow up with this. It's nonsense. The idea that somebody who'd come here after 3 months hadn't found a regular job, that we were going to put them in handcuffs and send them back through Dover. I mean, it's never ever going to happen. Phil, I also want to make
there were other countries that did apply that, though, weren't there, within the EU?
Who?
Didn't Hungarians do that? Didn't Belgians do that?
I've never seen the Belgians physically deporting anybody to another European country. No,
well, you may not have seen them. Absolutely. That didn't happen.
Well, I tell you what, I worked there for 21 years. I might know. Phil, this government was elected with a big majority, making it absolutely clear that freedom of movement would end. I mean, surely they have to deliver on that.
Well, I think you can say you want to control immigration. What I would like to know is who do you think is going to do the work that has now been deemed unskilled and therefore not worthy of people coming into the country for. You know, it's funny, it's not funny actually, it's very serious for me in agriculture that we may no longer be able to access European labour, because what happens when those guys decide that they want to go home for whatever reason, life changes, they move on.
Well, there is
Who is going to replace those people?
There is a special exemption made within the document released today for seasonal agricultural workers. So the government...
No, I'm not talking about seasonal agricultural workers. I'm talking about permanently employed agricultural workers.
Why don't you employ some English people, Phil?
Seasonally, cows get milked all year round.
Why don't you employ some English people, Phil?
Well, the last time we advertised a role for a dairy herdsperson, we had 5 people that we invited to interview, not local people, not one who turned up, not one. People, I'm afraid, have been
What are you paying them, Phil?
Led down the garden path in terms of expectations, and a lot of people now do not want to do this kind of work.
What are you paying
We've
them,
lost
Phil?
our rural communities. We've lost our rural schools because the people who've moved into the barn conversions want to privately educate their kids and take them into the city or whatever. We don't have that population. Two-thirds of dairy farmers have packed up since I've been a dairy farmer.
Phil, I know that. I know the dairy industry's got massive problems, but that isn't because of lack of labour. What are you advertising these jobs
lack
at?
Of labour. It's very much driven by lack of labour. We used to bring in Filipino workers under Tier 2 and Tier 4. We can't do that
So
now
if we open up the doors, if 10 million people come into Britain, you've got lots of cheap labour, that means you'll make a profit, does it?
Hang on a second. Just tell me what you think a herdsperson earns.
I've asked you that
no,
twice already.
Because you're being a little bit all-knowing here, because you're making the assumption...
I'm asking you a question.
You're making the assumption that
Oh dear. What are you paying?
No, hang on a second, Nigel. You're making the assumption that a herdsperson doesn't earn very much money.
I'd
just like to ask you what you think.
I've no idea what you're paying.
Well,
I'm
exactly,
asking you a question.
So it's kind of insulting that you would think that we are trying to exploit people.
Right.
We're not trying to exploit people.
I'm going to try one more time
People
here.
just simply are not there.
One more time. I'll try. What are you paying these people?
Okay, so a herdsperson would, working for us, would earn in their pocket in the region of £30,000 a year, and they would get a free house, and they would get free council tax. So a package of about £36,000–37,000.
And you're telling me at that level you simply can't find English people that want to do that
I'm telling
job?
you, at that level, we simply can't find people. If you want to talk to labour providers for the dairy industry, I suggest you do that, because...
So, Phil, you've got no
a
problem.
real problem finding people to do this work.
Phil, you can employ hundreds of people if you're paying that money. Thousands of people.
No, you cannot, Nigel. That is not true.
The new point system...
No, Nigel, you're making the assumption that people want to do it. People do not want this kind of work.
You can get your Filipinos back if you want to, because if they've got a skill, they speak English, and you're offering them a job, they're already got 70 points, and they may even have more. Let's move on.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
So actually, that's kind of a decent wage, semi-decent wage for a job like that with housing included. But in that, you have to recognize that somebody is going to need to be. Can you put down roots with that? You know, you get a house. Well, what kind of house? Can your family be there? Are you just employing? Is your setup just for migrants? People, you know what I mean? And why? And this goes back to. I know we don't have time to go into
the dairy industry
in the farming industry. We've gotten away from why is dairy so big that you have to bring in so many people to milk your cows for you, whereas the price is wrong on food, and you should be able to make a living as a dairyman, as just a small herd with natural cows. So there's that. Migrants vastly overrepresented in Norway crime stats. Figures from Statistics Norway show that migrants are vastly overrepresented in crimes, with younger migrants especially involved in violent crimes and abuse in Oslo. The figures were highlighted by Progressive Party members Sylvi Litzhag and Jon Hilgum, who revealed that young immigrant men from Somalia commit violent crime at a rate of 419 per 1,000 versus 34 per 1,000 for native Norwegians. The pair refute claims to the contrary made by NGOs, researchers, and others, stating that statistics in Norway, Denmark, and Sweden show that migrants are far overrepresented in violent crime, even when factors such as gender, age, social status, and employment status are taken into consideration. The reason we are criticized is that it is troublesome for politicians, activists, researchers, and commentators to be awakened by unpleasant facts when they have intensely tried to close both eyes and ears for long enough. The authors went on to describe the situation with migrant crime rates in Sweden, claiming that politicians and experts have accepted that one should not talk about the problem because it can be stigmatizing. Now the situation in Sweden is completely out of control, with hundreds of car fires, hundreds of school fires, over 100 bomb attacks, open street executions, coordinated attacks with automatic weapons, bombs and grenades. Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven has rejected claims that migration has anything to do with the surge of violent crime rate. And this is what we call... And so we bring to you the idea that, you know, a lot of Africans would want to do jobs and do their own work on their own land. But then you have this sickeningly death mindset of things like the Nigerian cult.
Yeah.
You know, with the using cultic practices to keep the girls thinking that they're stuck under a spell, and then they're running drugs. We talked about that. The Nigerian gang. Yeah, we do that all the time. I talk about it all the time.
I don't remember.
I do. I talk about it all the time. These Nigerian gangs in Sweden. These cult gangs. The voodoo gang. They're using voodoo. Well, anyways, you've got in Somalia. We know that Somalia is one of the most dangerous places to be. It is the mindset of the people there, and I'm not going to say it is. It's not race based. It's not religious based, even really. It is culturally based. Okay, and cultures from Somalia is such violence, and from Nigeria, we have a friend going through. I think it's West Africa right now. And he's like, I got to get out of here, man.
It's really dangerous.
This is so dangerous for me. He just went through Nigeria, and he's like, this is crazy. It's crazy, intensely dangerous.
No, he's trying to get out. It's hard when you're traveling around Europe, though, and you're from, like, an Asian country. He's from China. Just to even get the different, like, he's in Africa, right? And so to go from Africa to be able to come back into Europe, you've got to have visas and you've got to have reasons to be there, even though he's really just a journalist.
Yeah. So the op-ed by the Progressive Party politicians also comes just under a year after Norwegian media reported 70% of violent crime in Oslo was committed by migrants.
Wow.
I just wanted to throw that out there. So, we're talking about migration. And
let me backtrack to a couple of comments because there were a couple of good ones on the whole farming thing there. Let's see. Wicked Psych says, I don't think that was a dairy farmer. I think that was an elite presuming who will work in that industry. Obviously, that guy sounded like he was he had a farm. He was trying to pay people to work. Let's see. Britt Baza says, I don't know what you're trying to say there. A tied house for farm workers is usually for families in the UK. Firehorse says the cows are so badly infected on their sore udders, the milk is full of antibiotics here. Robert Goddard says free housing may mean a bedroom with 10 other people sharing it. Jim West says same as 6 people sharing a house can work for far less. Jim West says lots of farm workers just camp in tents where they work. He says if anybody else will do the work, that's fine, but employers blatantly target cheap EU workers first. Let's see. They want us living in pods on top of one another like rats, says Carsoni. Hilton says not just milking, he means cow husbandry, breeding the cows, and everything else involved with the cows. I looked it up on Indeed job site.
Okay, well, you might have some Swedish people can take those jobs. The Swedish population has increased by nearly 100,000 in 2019, according to the Swedish statistics. And 73% of the growth is not coming from my ancestors, it's coming from mass migration. A total of 97,404 people were added to the Swedish population, more of whom were men and then women. The figures were announced by the statistics in Sweden. Sweden is a country with a population of only 10 million people because they all left to come to America, but has seen massive population growth over the last decade of over 1 million people, with the largest year of growth occurring during the height of the migration crisis in 2016. While Syrians were the largest single nationality of immigrants in 2016 at 32% of all non-Swedish immigrants, they have now declined to just 5% of all immigrants in 2019, with Indians and Afghani nationals now having a higher share of immigration arrivals. Pakistani migrants arriving in Sweden saw the largest growth at 24%. Emigration or people leaving Sweden also increased by 1.8%. This massive influx of new arrivals has led to many problems for municipal governments, social welfare, and then you have the integration issues. In one school, most speak Arabic instead of Swedish. So you have the Swedish population increasing from mass migration, 73% of that coming in 2019 from mass migration. There is that. And there's nothing behind me. Is that so crazy?
I'm good. I'm putting them all up there.
But you do have the budget airline boss, Michael O'Leary, has come under fire from Muslim groups and politicians for suggesting the airport security check should focus on lone Muslim men rather than families with children, because that is where the threat is coming from. Where are the bombers? They are going to be single males traveling on their own, Ryanair CEO said in an interview with The Times. If you are traveling with a family with kids, on you go. The chances you are going to blow them all up is zero. You can't say stuff because it's racism, but it will generally make males of a Muslim persuasion. It will be. 30 years ago, it was the Irish. If that is where the threat is coming from, then deal with the threat. Predictably, the airline chief's comments were poorly received by the Muslim groups accused of Islamophobia. He openly advocates discrimination against males of a Muslim persuasion, which presumably is not based on specific intelligence, but solely on someone who looks or acts like a Muslim. That is the very definition of Islamophobia. Then you had Muslim MP Khalid Mahmood, who gained a certain notoriety during the expenses scandal, which he was revealed. I don't care who is. Security at airports is not an easy process, but these comments do not contribute to the debate and are not the way to deal with it, because we have shows about profiling, but if you actually profile in real life, then you are somehow a crazy racist.
Right.
He's effectively saying everyone is game. If they look like a Muslim, then they must be a terrorist. That is not what he is saying. He's saying you check them more. They go through more security. I'm sorry. That's what happens. When they stop vehicles, when, a certain person with a certain look, you stop them.
I said this before on the show, and I'm going to be 100% honest here. Y'all can call me liars. If it was a bunch of blonde girls with long hair that were doing a bunch of bad things, and it caused me an inconvenience, I would be like, anything you can do to stop those blonde girls with long hair doing this stuff. Yeah. Whatever I can do to help, because I want to make sure that they aren't able to commit the acts of violence that they would like to commit.
So I want you to play the Majid video here about our women and men.
Okay. Nope.
Because I listened to this week, and I was like, this people need to hear. But again, if you discuss it, no, not that one.
You said Majid. That's it. That's
I
the
know.
only one
There's
you gave
another
me.
one.
You only gave me that one.
No, there's another one. There's
you only gave me this one. Hang on, wait. These are the ones. Hang on. You can't play it behind you. Let me refresh the history here. Let's see. You gave me one Majid Lewis.
I played it. No, I didn't. You just have to go find it.
Wait.
I played it 100 times.
Is it one of these?
That one right there.
Which one?
That one. You have your finger on it.
Okay.
Are judges right to keep UK law separate from Sharia? I say yes. Ali, tell us what you think.
Hi, Majid. How are you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
I think, Majid, I don't know, you sound very Muslim. You're a Muslim guy, but I think you're a very big critic of Islam. You don't like Islamic laws. You don't like Islamic Sharia. You don't like... I feel as if, there's a problem with you and Islam.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're right.
That...
You're right. I want reform, Ali. I want reform. I don't think it's right, for example, that a woman gets half the inheritance of a man. Do you think that's right?
No, look, Islamic law, in Islam, woman has got plenty of rights.
No, hold on. I asked you a question, Ali. I don't think it's right that in the Quran itself, it states that a woman has half the inheritance of a man. Do you agree that a woman should only get half the inheritance of a man?
Of course, because when she gets married, or when she gets married, usually, she gets half from the husband as well. Yes?
So you agree that a woman should only have half the inheritance of... So a sister should only have half inheritance of her brother?
Of course.
Yeah.
When she
do you think
married,
a wife should obey her husband?
She has to obey her husband because husband has got, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, it's a hadith, that, if God would have ordered anyone to bow to anybody else... To bow, anyone, it would have been, a wife would have told to bow to her husband.
Yeah. So let me explain that for listeners. The hadith is actually, if God had commanded anyone to bow to anyone other than God, he would command the wife to bow to her husband.
Of course.
You endorse that?
I endorse. What do you mean? Everybody has got to endorse. That's a hadith. That's a very famous hadith.
What about the Quran, where it says that a husband has the right to beat his wife if she disobeys?
If she disobeys, he can only beat, and then the blood should not come and it should not be bruised. Like you tap your hand.
How kind of you. So it's okay to beat your wife as long as you don't draw blood?
No, not blood, and you shouldn't get bruised.
Okay, so it's okay to beat your wife as long as you don't draw blood or bruise her.
No, but you see...
Hold on, Ali.
beating has
Is it okay to beat your wife as long as you don't draw blood or bruise her?
Of course, yeah. Like, you tap, you tap somebody, you just say, how do you say, you tap someone, on the shoulder or something.
Humiliate
wake
them, you mean? Bully and humiliate your wife, because the passage continues to say, and then until you can beat her, and of course with Ali's caveat, as long as you don't draw blood or bruise her, until she returns to obedience. So you keep tapping her on the shoulder, right? Until she decides to obey you again, yeah?
It's like a wake-up call. Hang on, wake up.
Yeah, wake up. Obey me, yeah?
Yeah. She has to obey.
She has to obey.
What do you think? You don't expect. You want your wife to...
Does she have the right to divorce you, Ali? So if you're tapping your wife... Ali, if you're tapping your wife on the shoulder, as you've said it, right, to force her to obey you, you keep hitting her without bruising her or bleeding her. What if she wants to divorce you? Are you going to grant her the right to leave you? Or does only a man have the right to divorce?
No. You see, in Sharia, like you said, you just said that, there's a thing called khula, where she can demand her divorce, right?
From a third party.
From a third party.
Yeah, but what about if she wants to divorce herself? You've got the right to divorce her just by saying talaq, right? 3 times.
No. I don't believe that. I don't believe in talaq, 3 talaq. There is nothing like that.
No, in 3 separate sittings even. Fine. But you can still pronounce divorce, yeah?
Yeah, you can pronounce
Right, but she can't, yeah?
Look, a man has got the upper hand over the woman in Islam, right?
Yeah,
but the woman has got more right. Have got more right as well.
Okay, so after everything you've just described and all of your answers to my questions, are you seriously trying to convince me that that Majid, me, and all my listeners out there are going to now keep a straight face when you utter the sentence that despite all of what you've just said, a woman still has more rights in Islam than a man?
Woman has got more right. Obviously, she's not.
So you can hit her. She can't divorce you. She gets half the inheritance of a man, but she still somehow has more rights than a man does.
Look, Majid, have you read? You are the best planner. I am the best planner, but Allah is the best planner. Allah is the best of
Yes, I can quote it to you in Arabic, Ali. Please don't. I understand the theology. I'm putting to you human rights questions.
Look, human rights, we have made. Where is the human rights when all these things are happening in this world?
So tell me this. Tell me this. Can a woman? So if she can't divorce you and you're hitting her without drawing blood or bruising her, can she lead you in prayer?
She can't lead you in prayer. No.
No. Right.
No.
So she can't lead you in prayer, which explains why there's no single female mosque imam in Britain. She can't do anything if you're hitting her without bruising her or making her bleed. If she wants to divorce you, she can't do that. She gets half the inheritance of a man, and you're trying to convince me and my listeners that she still has more rights than a man.
She has got plenty of rights.
No, more rights, you said. More. You said more rights.
Yeah, yes. You see, Majid, woman is weaker than men, isn't it?
Women are weaker than men, yeah?
Of course, they are weaker, strength-wise, brain-wise, everything.
Yeah.
How many scientists are there who are women? How many, tell me how many scientists? How many prophets are there in women?
Yeah.
There's no prophets in women, right?
Yeah.
Man has
Are you married, Ali? Are you married?
I'm married, yes, I'm married.
Is your wife happy?
She's very happy. Sometimes she gets upset, yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me, my friend, the way you're speaking.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. That was really good.
He literally said sometimes she
if
gets
your
upset.
roof is over 7.
Sometimes she gets upset.
Oh my gosh. So it was really difficult to understand because he was speaking so fast and he had such a thick accent. But what he was essentially trying to get at, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second, because what it kind of sounds like is in Christianity, when a wife is treated the way that Christ treats the church and laid down his life for her, then it is almost like, I won't say that the woman has more or less rights than a man. I think they're equal, but it is that she is more precious and she is more valued. And so it almost kind of has that same ring to it, that what he's trying to say is that women have more rights because in our controlling of them, we are protecting them as if they are the most precious. Okay? That's kind of what it sounds like they're trying to get to. And I really do think that a lot of well-meaning Muslims think that way. The way that in Christianity, we think that way. Mm-hmm. That it does say that a wife is supposed to submit to her husband. The difference where the Bible diverges is that with Sharia, they want to implement it into law. Whereas if nowhere in our Bible does it say a husband can beat their wife, it says the opposite. If you disobey laws that are basic human rights, you will go to jail. And nowhere in Christianity is anybody trying to make it so that it is a law that a woman submit to her husband. It's almost like there has to be some sort of boss, and it's just like, okay, you're the boss, but I can make your life miserable if you don't. I'm just kidding. If you don't. But I'm just saying that it has that little ring to it, and I think that's why... I'm just trying to show...
No, here's the thing. You have to explain that Muhammad he was hanging with Jews, he was hanging with Christians, and then he started his own religion. So he takes over from here, and he takes from over here, and that's when you get...
And he morphs it, and it turns into something awful.
And it turns into something that is dogmatic, and it is letter of the law, and it kills the spirit. Paul says, hey, there's neither Jew nor Greek, bond nor free, male nor female. You are all equal.
Same. Exactly.
You got to take that one. So when he says wives submit to your husband, then he says husbands love your wives. It's a basic it's a yin and a yang. And if your husband isn't submitting to God, who is loving and kind and generous, and you don't submit to him.
Exactly.
But under Sharia law, then they pull you out, they beat you, they stone you, and that's anything that is good can be turned to evil. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have a little bit of good news. Young male voters back Swedish Populist Party, but far left have more females. So unfortunately, our female Swedish sisters are not so smart.
Oh, dear.
So maybe there is something to the... I'm just kidding.
You're funny.
The populist Swedish Democrats are the most popular party with male voters from 18 to 29, which is very interesting to me because we have been told that the millennials and the younger generations are like super far left. Mm-hmm. Okay? But these young men are being red-pilled.
Right.
Okay? In Sweden, they're like, you know what? Viking princess, yes. Far left princess, no. They're not princesses. We don't even know. They're like 100 genders. But female voters are largely on the opposite side of the political spectrum. The SD is the most popular party in the Novus poll, followed by the center-right Moderate Party. Combined with the conservatives Christian Democrats, the three right-leaning parties make over 60% of the male vote. The female vote, on the other hand, shows the most popular party in that age bracket is the far left party, followed by the Social Democrats and the Center Party. The SD and the moderates make up just 20% for the female vote. Jenny Mastrom, a political science at Södertörn University, commented on the results of the poll, saying...
I think that's Södertörn.
Both sexes value such things as an investment in welfare, but greatly differ on things like migration. Because the men are like, stop raping the women, and the women are like, but they don't mean it to. Lana Forbes, a student from... This was so encouraging to me that this next generation, like, you can force feed kids so much before they rebel.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a good rebellion, and that is a really good look for you, by the way.
You too.
Okay. Sometimes you can be... this was just so exciting to me. This was such good news that these young men, 18 to 29, are waking up.
Here, we don't take enough here.
That's good. Okay. All right. So, according to Johan Stromstedt of this SD, more and more young women are becoming involved in her party, but explained it is harder for girls, as many, including herself, become excluded from groups of friends over their political views. The Swedish Democrats have topped several polls in recent months, with their leader, Jimmy Åkesson, this guy right here, tied with the Christian Democrat leader, Ebba Busch. While the SD are growing more and more popular in Sweden, some former allies like the Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage have become disillusioned with the party. In January, shortly before Brexit Day, Farage slammed the Populist Party over their U-turn on wanting to leave the European Union, saying they had become corrupted by champagne and nice lunches. And that's a whole nother issue there. But
Farage knows it really well because, like he said, you show up and we watched the Thomas Massey documentary the other day, and he said something that I thought was really fascinating. You get this congressional pin when you're a congressman, And he said that he refers to it as my precious from Lord of the Rings. He says he tries not to wear it. He keeps it in his pocket where he can kind of feel it and know that it's there. But he tries not to wear it because there's such a power there. When you walk down the streets of Washington or you get in an elevator, people literally step to the side. I mean, you are just treated with so much respect from this tiny, tiny little congressional pin. I think it's smaller than a quarter or something, right? And so the same thing, Nigel understands the corruption of power. And he's been trying to sound the horn of when you get to the EU Parliament, they lure you like Babes in Toyland or whatever, the Candyman or whatever. Like they just, it's all amazing. And don't you want to stay here? And don't you like the power? And don't you like the posh? And don't you like being treated like you're somebody and flying first class and stuff like that, you know? So that's what Nigel is trying to say. You've been bamboozled by this.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So a couple more little articles, random here. Vatican police raid a bishop's home and office in a financial crackdown. Now, what's so funny is that it's like, you know, the kids overseeing the kids stealing from the cookie jar. But if that's what's happening, then it's really on a huge scale with the Vatican. You know, we know that the corruption in the Catholic Church as far as finances is just huge. But the Vatican police raided the office and apartment of Bishop Alberto Perlasca, a former official in the Vatican Secretary of State, seizing documents and computer equipment, according to the Holy See communique, this morning as a part of a search ordered by the promoter of justice, Gian Piero Milano.
Milano.
Documents and computer equipment were seized from the office and home of Bishop Alberto Perlasca, former head of the administrative office of the first section of the Secretary of State. The communique said that the raid was part of an ongoing investigation. Tuesday's operation was the second such raid conducted on officials of the Vatican Secretary of State and makes Perlasca the sixth and highest ranking Vatican official to be implicated in the scandal surrounding the Holy See's finances. That's what I wanted to bring to you. The sixth and the highest ranking Vatican official to actually be implicated. It's just like, it's huge. Okay, we talking about the Medjugorje, and there was just briefcases of cash coming from Medjugorje to the Vatican. As Brighteon News reported last December, the Vatican has been shaken by a series of revelations of questionable financial dealings, including, get this, subsidizing Hollywood films and purchasing multi-million-dollar properties in downtown London. The Vatican invested more than $1 million to finance the Rocket Man film, a biopic of the singer-songwriter Elton John, using money donated by the Catholic faithful through the worldwide Peter's Pence collections. Vatican prosecutors are also examining Vatican investments made through the Malta-based Centurion Global Fund that finances an eclectic series of projects, including real estate, mineral water, websites, and films.
Now, what they're trying to say is that these are just economic. We're just taking our parishioners' money and trying to make it, it's like they're literally gambling, because that's what investments are. They're literally going against the Bible, taking parishioners' money and saying, no, but it's like the parable of the you know, not the sower, but when they kept the money and they invested it, like, should have used, no. When parishioners give you money, okay, you just do with that money. You just do it. You don't go invest it and try to make it even more and bigger and grow. But that's what they're trying. That's how they're trying to get away with this.
Yeah, that's not a thing, dude. So I guess this Centurion Global is a hedge fund, and Vatican capital is 2/3 of it. So the Vatican has become a 25% partner in Lapo Elkin's eyewear eyewear company, Italian independent, while also becoming an $11 million partner in industrialist Enrico Perozzanzi, chairman of the Genoa soccer team. Along with the Rocketman film, the Vatican also invested $3.6 million into Men in Black. The Vatican's biggest investment of $17.7 million went to the Swiss-Swedish ABB company, which produces parts for nuclear power stations, and allegedly participated in the destruction of a Malaysian rainforest. I'm wondering how about the Pope felt about that. Pope Francis has acknowledged that the Secretary of State's investment of sum of $200 million in a London luxury property development in Chelsea had caused a scandal. Oh my gosh. This is not Jesus in me, right? German judge, environmentalist Elon Musk can chop down forests to build Tesla factory. Clearing the land is Tesla's German gigafactory is back on their way after an environmental challenge to its construction was thrown out of court. The company claims it will plant trees elsewhere in the country to offset the forest it clears to build a manufacturing facility. Business Insider reports that an environmental challenge to the construction of Tesla's new gigafactory in Germany has been thrown out of court, giving the firm the go-ahead to continue clearing the forest land outside of town east of Berlin. Breitbart News previously reported that Tesla was ordered by a German court to stop cutting down trees. The electric vehicle maker announced plans last November to build a factory in Grünheide, located in the eastern state of Brandenburg. The ruling of the higher administrative court of the states of Berlin and Brandenburg came shortly after the state environmentalist office gave Tesla permission to clear 92 hectares of forest area to make room for their new manufacturing plant. So I feel like that is absolutely insane and stupid, and it bothers me to no end. All right. Judge rules against police that acted like Czech Gestapo Stasi over online transgender jokes. So Harry Miller has won his high court freedom of speech battle against Humbersburg police over his right to make jokes about transgenderism on social media. Miller, himself an ex-copper, was incensed when Humberside police sent a police officer round to his home in order to check his thinking after some remarks he had made on Twitter were classified as a non-crime hate incident. As Miller told Breitbart London last year, he decided that he would fight the issue in the courts rather than accept that the police had any business sniffing through his Twitter feed in search of offensive material. The judge has agreed that tweets were legitimate. The Justice Noel said that the claimant's tweets were lawful and there was not the slightest risk that he would commit a crime offense by continuing to tweet. I find the combination of the police visiting the claimant's place of work and their subsequent statements in relation to the possibility of prosecution were a disproportionate interference with the claimant's right to freedom of expression because of their potentially chilling effect. He continued, in this country we have never had a Cheka or a Gestapo or a Stasi. We have never lived in an Orwellian society. However, the court ruling is unlikely to resolve much because the judge did not accept Miller's wider challenge against the College of Policing guidelines on hate crime. These define a hate incident as any non-crime incident which is perceived by the victim or the person, blah, blah, blah. So go ahead and play Majid. I think it's going to... go ahead.
The other Majid?
Yeah, the other one, I think on the... Yeah, knife crime is more dangerous than thought crime. Okay.
Mr. Harry Miller is 55 years old and he tweeted a limerick. The limerick that he tweeted, I'm not sure why it's called a limerick, it doesn't seem to rhyme, but maybe I'm missing part of the tweet here. He said on Twitter, I was assigned mammal at birth, but my orientation is fish. Don't miss-species me. That's what he tweeted. Now, if he tweeted something where that was targeted at a particular person that made them feel bullied or harassed, I'd be a lot more sympathetic, yet still wouldn't consider it a criminal offence that requiring investigation by the police, but I'd be a lot more sympathetic to the complaint, at least. But it appears to me that this has been just a general tweet he put out as a general observation he's making about the state of the trans debate. Now, you don't have to approve of that tweet, nor the point he's making, to agree with the next part of what I'm about to say, which is, did that really warrant a visit at his office, at his workplace, by an ominously named community cohesion police officer, a community cohesion officer who went there and visited his workplace and said to him, quote, I'm here to check your thinking. The word Orwellian is very overused, unfortunately, because I'm a huge fan of Orwell and always have been. But if it's ever appropriate to use the word, it's when a community cohesion officer visits your workplace and says to you, I'm here to check your thinking. I mean, what on earth were Humberside police thinking when they did this? Then they said to him that he's in danger of breaking the law. In danger of, because he hadn't yet broken the law. But their point was, they said that his tweets would be recorded by police. Recorded, and therefore he's now in their database. Right? Recorded as a non-crime hate incident. A non-crime hate incident. I mean, what is a non-crime hate incident when it's at home? Other than being a thought crime. Which is why I say I use the word Orwellian very advisedly in this day and age because it's overused by, internet armchair keyboard.
So if you're like in a house and you get an argument, can they come in and just say you hate that person, you're acting mean?
Yeah.
And like they have to be in everybody's house every day.
I know.
Experts, but frankly, here it's incredibly it's relevant. It's appropriate because what else can a non-crime hate incident mean other than a thought crime? Now, lots of you who would be pro-trans rights, and I like to think of myself as too, would be disgusted at or perhaps disturbed by his sentiment. But I would put it to you, that's not the point of this conversation. Because if you acknowledge fundamentally that thought crime should never be investigated by law enforcement, then a corollary of that is necessarily accepting the fact that people will think bigoted things and even say bigoted things, and as long as they don't target an individual with harassment, those bigoted things should not be the domain of law enforcement. And it's why I often say that no idea should be above scrutiny, just as no person should be beneath dignity. And if he was bullying an individual person, then maybe there's a role for the tech companies perhaps to step in and, I don't know, temporarily suspend his tweet for bullying. But there's certainly no role here for the law enforcement, for police, and for Humberside police in particular. So I promised I'd draw an analogy with racism, and here it is. The BNP must remain a legal party in this country, and must remain so without harassment by law enforcement, even though they are a racist and bigoted party. Do you see the distinction? And what's good for me is good for trans people, is good for feminists, is good for men and women and everyone. People must be allowed to harbour bigoted thoughts and express bigotry in general terms.
Okay, you can stop it.
Don't investigate them for quote-unquote non-crime hate incidents.
He goes on to say you need to focus on knife crime and how crazy it is, and that's kind of the Orwellian weird place that we are at right now, where the police knock on your door, especially in the UK, over like a little, call me if I identify as a fish. And now, like, I'm here to check your thoughts.
Unbelievable. That's scary. It's so scary. And here's what I gotta be honest. Okay, I'm glad that Boris Johnson is your prime minister. I'm even more glad that President Trump is our president. That's not going to happen under President Trump. Will it happen after the fact?
Yeah. If somebody else gets
okay.
in. Like if Bernie Sanders gets in.
Right, exactly. But it's not going to happen under Trump, and I'm very glad about that. Britt Baza says, Michelle, the police in the UK, whenever they attend a property, they fill out a form detailing how people feel. It's called a domestic violence form. These forms are misused. Interesting. That's crazy.
All right, guys. So in lieu of a song, I have the candy video.
So I can pull it up on mine?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is very exciting. Tell them about the candy video.
I like that. Britt Baza sent us this rock candy. It's called Rock. They make them at different seaside places all over the UK. They're very cool. They have the name in there. And what I love about this is that it's like a small family-owned business. It's the best of Britain. These seaside towns that are very picturesque, and it's just like the best of Britain. So I kind of,
this is exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Make us small here.
Hopefully we won't get a
copyright
strike on this.
We Brits take more than 25 million trips to the coast each year. And it wouldn't be a day at the beach without a sweet treat. On a sunny day, the humble stick of rock is a firm favourite. Yeah. And 4 million pieces are sold at seaside resorts up and down the country. It's as much a part of seaside tradition as buckets and spades, fish and chips, and stripy deck chairs. There are over 20 traditional rock makers across the country, and business is booming. And Bridlington in the East Riding of Yorkshire is home to one of the biggest.
It's candy! Stop it. I've watched this video twice already. No, 3 times. I've seen it 3 times. This is my 4th.
Satisfying our seaside sugar cravings, John Bull produces over 40,000 sticks every week. That's 6.5 miles of rock. But what exactly is rock? Well, it's just sugar, made into solid sticks. Every dentist's nightmare. And to cater for our sweet tooth, the factory get through 25 tons of sugar and 20 tons of glucose every week. So, let's get rocking. The first stage is the cooking process, which happens here, in the boiling room. It's hot, sticky work.
So the first part of that process is the water, which is 4 litres of water we pour
So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, because usually if
Don't
you...
skip too fast.
Then we'll add
But yeah,
25 kilos.
that's good.
Copper pot conducts heat 5 times better than iron and 20 times better than steel, making
The
sure
copper
the
pot.
heat spreads more evenly.
Once he's mixed the process up, we put the lid on and we switch the pan on. Then we can add the glucose. Then we leave it to boil up to 100. It becomes lumpy, so we have to get it right.
It takes 40 minutes to get the...
So what's
Now
cool...
we watch him pour it out here.
Never known anything else. Me and my
No, you
sister
can
have
fast forward.
always known this.
It's his family's business.
Yeah.
Don't go past where they're doing it on the table. Though.
Right.
It's a process that James has grown up with. He's the 4th generation of the family to work in the
That's
rock
what I think is
business.
really cool about this.
Yeah, very proud of what we've achieved over the years and to keep it going on, over 100 years.
And Dad Trevor must have a sweet tooth too.
I am pushing him to the air. He just wants to be here. It's all he's ever known, so obviously he wants to come in and work every day.
Trevor's granddad Ernest opened an emporium of rock in Bridlington in 1911, and his dad Leonard worked there too. Today they're still using traditional methods. And the next stage happens at the cooling table.
This is really cool.
This bit of kit has cold water running through it to cool the sugar mixture down to a workable temperature.
This is still about 130 degrees. We get it on the table, cool it down. What they're going to do at the bottom left one there is now add the colours.
Watch this. This is crazy.
Colouring is added to some of the mixture. That'll be used later to form the lettering and casing in the finished piece of rock.
Wait, just watch it.
Well, I don't want to get a copyright check. So
Okay, all right, you're fine.
You know what I
You're
mean?
fine. Yeah. Now
Each
watch
panel
them.
of
Watch them do
cooling
this.
sugar mixture is destined for a different part of the finished stick.
See the underneath of it, it's starting to set and it forms a shell, like glass.
It forms a shell.
They're just folding it over and they'll keep doing that at regular intervals to prevent it setting.
This is crazy.
The red and blue parts are going to make the outer layer of the rock. The rest of the mixture will form the center of the rock.
That's like a
but
big
it needs
taffy
to be
pull.
flavored and
Yeah.
aerated first.
And aerated.
Aerated.
They put air in it. That's what gives it that.
The middle
Put it in
is
the
like,
pulling machine
yeah.
in order to change its texture.
Process.
The team use over 30 different natural flavors. And the big secret of this seaside
So here's
sweet
the cool
is a feat
part.
of confectionery engineering. How do you get the letters in? By special request, this rock will have Made in Britain running all the way through it.
So all the lettering that goes in a stick of rock are made by hand. Andrew's been doing lettering for 8 years.
It takes a real craftsman to get the letters right, as the coloured rock and its fillers can be up to 6 feet long.
So he stretches it out, puts it in the white blocks. They prevent it going flat.
Each letter is built separately. Thin strips of toffee are cut to length and fitted together, and the visible ends form the letters.
They're artists.
Everybody has their own letters they don't like making. So my letter is a Q. I don't like making a letter Q.
If I had to choose, I'd pick Y probably, because you've got to make 2 letters at once. You've got to make an I and then you've got to make a C.
Seaside rock dates back to the 19th. For its heyday,
We also do a lot of wedding rocks. So
the casing.
Weddings, so if you want your name in
the red,
there.
the white and the blue is going to be the outside of the rock. When they stretch it out, they'll cut it, and they'll do that about 4 times so
Look
we
at
get
this.
the right size that we need for the actual rock.
And he then stretches
That's-
the letters out and
that's the
colours them in a
letters.
sheet of white rock.
Those are just the
Then it's ready
letters.
to be enclosed in its coloured casing. a bit like a huge sweet sausage roll.
So we've got the layer of rock between the lettering and the outside of the rock, so that when we put it onto the casing, there's actually a buffer between the letters and the casing.
This large lump of toffee, called a batch, weighs 40 kilos and takes 2 people to carry it to the next step.
And then it just rolls out.
It's heated, so the rollers are going round, and while it's spinning it, it's softening it up. So what Jason's trying to do now is trying to drag it out so we can get it down through the rollers. And what Tom's doing at the end to do and to get right. So he's going to tear the end bit off. That'll be used as broken rock. Got it through the rollers. Now the rollers are dictating the width of the stick, not the length. So they're going to stretch this out the length of the table.
Look at this. The 40 kilo batch is painstakingly stretched into a whopping 500-foot length and then cut into 10-inch sticks.
That's fascinating.
So if you look at it, on the top of the scissors, it doesn't actually cut it.
They break it.
It cracks it.
Cracking it, rather than cutting, prevents the rock from shattering.
Wrap them, they'll be...
There it says made in Britain.
It actually is to wrap the rock. There is a technique, and everybody has a different way of doing it.
All made in Britain. So we like to highlight, I mean, this is, if you guys have stuff that is cool to Australia or France or Poland, send that to us, because we like to highlight what makes each country kind of unique and kitschy, and especially, you know, small family-owned businesses that keep the world turning round.
Yeah, so thank you, Barry, for sending us the rock candy. I think you're further along on yours. They're so big.
Saying that, but I haven't gone at it for a while.
You haven't. Yours is like down to like there from like here, and mine is kind of. It's hard to get through it, but it's
I
good.
need to break it into little pieces,
and then you could kind of like yeah. Oh my gosh. Kelly says, I want some candy from there. Yeah, it's really fun, and there's different flavors. We got the peppermint, which is the classic. I think it's easier to eat the peppermint because it's a little bit more refreshing. But the dogs are playing. So anyway, I think we've had an excellent show. Good job, Leah. Great show today. I will have to figure out what the heck is going on with this crazy thing. But thank you guys for being here.
As Patrick Alley is apt to say lately, use the gospel for protection.
Yeah. Use this gospel for protection. It's a hard road to heaven. We call on your blessings. In the Father, we put our faith. All right, we love you guys. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory. If it's the truth, please like, comment, and subscribe. Now, when I say comment, please comment. Please comment. I love to hear from you guys. I love to hear what you have to say, your thoughts on what's happening in your neck of the woods, what you thought about the different parts of the show.
So if you have a P.O. Box, if you want to send us letters, we'll read them on air.
Unless otherwise noted. P.O. Box 107, Milford, Ohio, 45150. We're still working on being able to live stream on Facebook, but I guess it doesn't matter. God knows. We'll see you back here on Friday.
When we come back, it'll be like, oh, I missed you so much.
Oh, on Facebook?
Yeah,
they will have
like
missed
more
us.
Numbers. Because it'll be like, oh, Resistance Chicks is back.
Okay, so Fridays, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our weekly roundup, and on Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for what we did today, World News. Ish. It's always ish. We are so thankful for you guys, our viewers. Thank you to all the moderators. Patriot Galley will be replaying this. I don't know, sometime later. She did a couple of shows last night on Resistance Chicks, which I think she's premiered some on here today. I'm not quite sure, but be sure to check those out. So, all right. We love you. God loves you. God bless.
I was cold.